Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Council's Honorary Council meeting for the 20th of April 2026. I'm Deputy Mayor Terence Winner and I'm filling in for the Mayor tonight while he's on leave. I note that the meeting is officially open at 6 p.m. and I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country, where on behalf of the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we meet today, and I'd also like to pay my respects to elders both past and present. Councillors, if I could please ask you to stand, and members of the crowd as well. We have an opening prayer to be conducted by Major Shirley Spooner from the Salvation Army.
God, we give you thanks for the ultimate sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ, on the cross and his resurrection. This week we also give you thanks, Father, for the great sacrifices of the men and women who died fighting for our freedom. Father, I give you thanks for the sacrifice of time and talents of each of our local councillors and staff. May the decisions here be made through your wisdom and discernment. Bless our councillors with compassion, strength, wisdom and hope. Guide their footsteps and guard their hearts, Lord. Bless them and the families they represent. And I ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
With that, we'll move on to item 3, which is the disclaimer reading. And please note that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on the Council's website in accordance with the City's public participation in Council meetings policy, which can be viewed on the Council's website. All reasonable care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given if your image is broadcast. The recommendations contained in this agenda are officers' recommendations only and should not be acted upon until Council has resolved to adopt those recommendations. The resolutions of Council should be confirmed by pursuing the minutes of the Council meeting at which these recommendations were considered. Members of the public should also note that they act at their own risk if they enact any resolution prior to receiving official written confirmation of the Council's decision. Item 4 is a record of attendance. In attendance tonight is myself, Deputy Mayor Terence Winner, Councillor Della, Councillor Johnson, Councillor O'Donnell, Councillor Viskovich, Councillor House, and Councillor Walker-Dunstan. We are also joined by several members of staff, including the Acting CEO, Director Camporelli, Director Hicks, Director Streelane, Director Jaeger, and Acting Director David King. We're also joined by our Governance Coordinator, a Governance Officer, and our IT Service Delivery Officer. Visitors in the room, we have 5, as well as 2 members of the press. Item 4.2, apologies. We have nil apologies from elected members and members of staff. But under item 4.3, leave of absence, we do have previously approved leaves of absences from the Mayor, Glenn Wilson, Councillor Bodica, Acting Chief Executive Officer, Mal Osborne, and our Director of Governance and Organisational Strategy, Francis Liston. Just microphone, sorry, Councillor House.
Is now the appropriate time to ask a procedural clarification regarding the order of items? Or would you like me to do that at another stage?
Let's hold on that one. So we've got some public access and question times first. Maybe we round that after that, if that's fine, Councillor House. Thank you. So with that, response to previous public questions taken on notice, there is nil. Under item 6, public access and public question time, we do, under 6.1, under public access, have 2 requests tonight, with the first being from Victoria Bauket. Veronica, sorry, if you're happy to take the podium. This one is a statement.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Councillors. My name is Veronica Bokett. I have been a resident of Kalgoorlie for 33 years and I've come tonight to voice my objection to the proposed building on the corner of Butler and Pearce Street in Piccadilly. This proposal raises several serious concerns regarding safety, infrastructure capacity, and neighbourhood amenity. Firstly, the scale and intensity of the development are excessive for local context. A total of 24 bedrooms and 24 bathrooms strongly indicates a very high occupancy rate, which is not in keeping with the character of the surrounding residential area. These are not typical family homes and appear designed for high occupancy use, which is inconsistent with the established low-density, family-orientated nature of the neighbourhood. This level of density is likely to generate significantly increased traffic movements and activity. Secondly, the proposed parking provision is clearly inadequate. With only 6 parking bays for what could reasonably accommodate 20 or more residents, it is inevitable that overflow parking will spill out onto the street. Given that the surrounding roads are approximately 10 metres wide, additional on-street parking will severely constrain vehicle movement and reduce visibility for drivers. This leads to critical safety concerns. The street is used regularly by school children riding bikes. The increase in traffic congestion, the reduced sight lines, will place these children at heightened risk. The current road width does not provide sufficient capacity to safely accommodate increased parked cars, passing traffic, and cyclists simultaneously. Furthermore, the presence of a fire station on the street makes unobstructed road access essential. Emergency vehicles require clear and reliable passage at all times. Increased congestion on-street parking caused by insufficient on-site provision could delay emergency response times, posing a risk not only to future occupants of the development, but to the broader community. In summary, the combination of excessive occupancy, insufficient parking, narrow road width, proximity to a fire station, the presence of vulnerable road users such as school children, and the inconsistency of the development with family-orientated character of the area creates an unacceptable risk to safety and a significant negative impact on the amenity of the neighbourhood. For these reasons, I respectfully request that Council reject the proposed or require substantial revisions, including a reduction in scale and a provision of adequate on-site parking consistent with the likely number of occupants and the character of the area. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Veronica. The next request tonight under public access is from Nicola Ettridge and Damon Moores. If you'd both like to come up to the podium as well.
Good evening, everyone. Quick introduction, I'm Damon Moores, represent Training Alliance Group. I'm regional manager for employment services for the Kalgoorlie-Boulder and Esperance area. Under the tag umbrella outside of our RTO, which delivers accredited training, we also have employment services. As I mentioned, we oversee quite a few programs. Workforce Australia, mainstream, transition to work, focusing on our youth in the community, Parents Pathway, catering to primary caretakers of children under the age of 6, as well as our self-employment assistance program. And all up in those programs, we have roughly 700 on our caseload. And what we do basically is help them overcome barriers and get them work ready back into the workforce. At that, I'd like to introduce Nick, my colleague, and she will introduce the program she leads also here in this region.
I'm the Regional Manager for Inclusive Employment Australia, so we help people with disability and barriers. Gay movement going back into work. We are represented by the community that we represent, so I'm deaf myself. I do a lot of work in the community. As Damon said, we look after Kalgoorlie-Boulder and Esperance. I also look after all of the south and over to northern as well, so quite a big region. So we are proposing new tenancy in the Smiles building in Boulder.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to public question time. The first set of questions we have is from Tony Glass. Tony is not here tonight. However, I will read out Tony's questions and we'll provide the answer to those questions as well. So the first question for Tony was, given the rise in EV ownership in Kalgoorlie, does the city have any plans to repair the EV charging station at the front of the council officers that have been tagged out for almost 1 year. In response to that, there is currently no plans at present. Kalgoorlie-Boulder's EV registrations are estimated to be in the low hundreds, not in the thousands. While the exact number is not explicitly published in static reports, it is consistent with the EV penetration of well under 1% of the local light vehicle fleet in regional Goldfields LGAs. Question 2, if yes, when is this unit going to be repaired, and if no, why? In response, the charger in front of the administration building cannot be repaired and needs a replacement. This will be done once the city receives a suitable grant that provides the required funding. And question 3, the same question as question 1, but in relation to 3P 5-pin EV charging plug on Hennon Street opposite the York Hotel. Are there plans to fix this unit that has also been offline for about a year? And in response to this question, the power supply to the endowment block is not sufficient currently to provide power to this charging station. Upgrades to the electrical supply and wiring are in the planning phase, and any reinstatement to this charging station will have to be part of the grant mentioned before. With that, we'll move on to our second set of questions, and that's from Diane Moffat.
At 11 Pierce Street, which is directly opposite the proposed bill on Butler Street. Question, Butler and Pierce Street are only both 10 metres wide. Proposed building of 4 6x6 townhouses is parking for only 6 vehicles, totally with the potential of another 42 cars. Where do you propose these vehicles park?
The officers have prepared some responses to these questions, and the first response to your first question, Diane, is a condition has been imposed requiring all vehicles associated with the development of the parking wholly within the site. A total of 8 parking bays and vehicles are permitted within the site, and City Rangers will undertake parking compliance action if it is found that these vehicles are parking illegally.
Have these plans allowed for foot traffic of the dozens of children that use Pierce Street as a safer alternative to walking Graham Street before school and after school?
Thank you for your second question. It is expected that vehicle traffic impacts will be consistent with group dwelling residential developments which are permitted in this area.
What are the council planning to encourage family homes being built instead of what essentially are more workers' accommodation?
And thank you for your third question. It is a strategic initiative of the city to promote and support the development of housing for the diverse range of people living and working within Kalgoorlie-Boulder. City officers work collaboratively with housing providers within Kalgoorlie-Boulder to ensure the delivery of quality, affordable housing. There are numerous family-orientated developments concurrently occurring across the city, and ongoing planning for future diverse housing types continues to be a priority for the city. Diane, all these questions, all these answers will be supplied within the minutes as well, and we'll ensure that a copy of those get to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, petitions, deputations and presentations. There is nil. Item 8, notations of interest. 8.1, interest affecting impartiality of the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder's Code of Conduct. Councillors, are there any other interests of impartiality? Nil. Under 8.2, financial interests, Local Government Act Section 5.60A. There are 2. That is from myself with a financial interest in item 14.3.1, which is the 2025-26 rates concession applications due to being an employee of one of the applicants. We also have 2 financial interests from Councillor O'Donnell. The first being in item 14.4.2, the Regional Precincts and Partnership Program, as funding agreements due to having done work for Council in traffic management previously. And in item 14.6.4, the pre-budget commitment due to also having done work for Council in traffic management. Councillors, is there any other financial interest that anyone would like to declare? No. 8.3, proximity interests. Councillors, are there any other proximity interests anyone would like to declare? No. Applications for leave of absence. Councillors, we do have one from Councillor Johnson for the 11th of May until the 31st of May for personal and business leave. Can I please get a mover to accept Councillor Johnson's application for leave? Councillor Della and a seconder. Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Della, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor O'Donnell. Any councillors? Nil. With that, we will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Passed. 8. No, that's not right. 7-0. Thank you. We'll move on to item 10, announcements by the person presiding without discussions.
Deputy Mayor, would it be at the right time to move a procedural motion to suspend section 9.1 standing orders?
Can do Councillor Johnson, or we can do it under motions of which previous notices have been given, but happy to consider that now.
Okay, just a procedural motion, recommendation that section 9.1 of the standing orders, local 2013, which requires members of council to rise to speak, be suspended for this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Della. As this is a procedural motion, councillors, we'll put this straight to a vote. All those in favour of the procedural motion from Councillor Johnson? Passed 7-0. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Announcements by the person presiding without discussions. Councillors, obviously these were completed by the Mayor and they are all displayed on the screen for councillors' knowledge. Mayor Wilson has been extremely busy, as we can see. There's a number of advocacy pieces, stakeholder engagement pieces. He participated in several events, including the citizenship ceremony, along with several other councillors, the Harmony Week interwoven opening events on the 15th of March, as well as the opening of Kids Fest on the 18th of April, which was an enormous success for our city. Councillors, are there any questions on any of these items? Councillor House?
18th? I thought he was on leave.
I attended that one. Thank you, councillors. Item 11 is the confirmation of minutes. So there is a recommendation that the minutes from the ordinary council meeting held on the 16th of March 2026 be confirmed as a true record of that meeting. Councillor House. Just that microphone, please, Councillor House.
Do you mind if I get a clarification on the meeting minutes, please?
Not a problem.
Notice of the financial disclosures at the last meeting. There's some discrepancies around the disclosure type. In particular, it relates to the KBCCCI, I think I went too many C's there, business case. I just wanted to understand from the CEO's point of view, I guess the CEO's point of view, how the relationship between the disclosure of Hannon Street Trader relates to anything to do with the determination of the business case for KBCCI, and more importantly, the intent of the business case, which was the flights to Melbourne.
Thank you, Councillor House. Acting
you.
CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through yourself. From my understanding, the relationship is between the shop owner and the KBCCI, as that shop owner does receive benefit through the KBCCI and their Cal Dollars program.
Supplementary, please.
Councillor House.
That may be true, and if that's what you're saying is true, it's true. I encourage you to revise, look at the minutes and understand that there was another financial disclosure for membership, but was an impartial disclosure. So there's inconsistencies between the declaration of Hannon Street Trader sitting as a financial interest and its relationship with the flights. I would deem, if that was the case, as you're saying, Director, the Hannon Street is associated with KBCCI. I would have thought that's an impartial interest.
Acting CEO.
I'd need to refer that to the councillors who made the disclosure, Councillor Hulse. Not that it's, in the end, it's not for the city to make the determine the interest.
It would be too difficult for anybody to come up with that conclusion right now. So perhaps we could have a report back to council so we can understand that.
Thanks, Councillor House. It's definitely, we can have a look through. Ultimately, disclosures are a responsibility of councillors themselves, not obviously city officers, but the minutes, I believe, and we'll put it to a vote, do reflect what occurred in the meeting in terms of the declarations where they went. But thank you for your questions, Councillor House. Councillor Viskovich, did you have? No? Thank you. So we do have the recommended motion. Do we have a mover of the item 11 confirmation of minutes? Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Viskovich. Councillor Johnson would like to speak to the motion. Councillor Viskovich. Any councillors like to speak to the motion? Nil. With that, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? It is passed 6-1. Item 12 is motions of which previous notice has been given. There is nil. Item 13 is urgent business approved by the person presiding or by decision. There is also nil. Item 14, councillors, is the report of officers. The on-block proposal, councillors, if you want to make note, for item 14 are, and I'm happy to repeat anything as well if there is a few in here. And as always, councillors, if there's any item you'd like to pull out, please do. So the proposal is for 14.2.1, the WAEC election report 2025 local government election. Item 14.2.2, the corporate performance reporting. Item 14.2.3, the operational performance indicators. Item 14.3.2, the accounts payable reports March 2026. Items 14.3.3, the monthly statement of financial activity February 2026. Item 14.4.3, the WALGA climate change advocacy position. Item 14.5.1, the demolition of the Airport Aero Club. Item 14.5.2, RFT 26013, Microsoft Licensing and Subscription Management Agreement. Item 14.6.2, Progress Report on Asset Management Strategy Development. Item 14.6.3, Approval to award RFT 26012, Upgrade Stage 2, Sporting Fields and Parks. Item 14.7.1, Development Application Amendment to Approve Educational Establishment, PA 271/10, Lot 221, Number 60, Moran Street, Boulder 6432. Item 14.7.2, Scheme Amendment Number 2 to Local Planning Scheme Number 2, Short-Term Rental Accommodation. Item 14.7.3, Development Application Change of Use D003/26, Holiday House, Lot 80, Number 47, McDonald Street, Kalgoorlie, WA 6430. Item 14.7.4, Development Application for Group Dwellings D68/25-20, Butler Street, Piccadilly. Item 14.7.5, Development Application Home Business D022/26, 1 Matthews Way, Somerville. And item 14.7.6, Development Application Alterations to a Shop and New Office D147/25, Lot 926, Number 32, Boulder Road, Kalgoorlie, WA 6430. There's a fair bit in there, councillors. So, Councillor House, any items you'd like to remove?
Can I ask a question first?
Sure, Councillor House.
Who determines these lists?
In regards to the on-block, it's based off, I believe, and Acting CEO, please feel free to chime in with this one as well. It's based on the forms which are filled out that's sent through from the governance team by email in the lead up to the meeting. Acting CEO, anything else?
No, that's correct, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah. Councillor House?
Let's clarify, what forms are we referring to?
Acting CEO, can you specify the exact name of the form? I would hate to give the wrong information on that one.
I'd have to ask the governance officers sitting over the side.
Actually, yeah, there we go.
Through the Deputy Mayor, the on-block resolutions are all simple votes. So absolute majority has to be pulled out. And then if we haven't received any alternate motions, by the time we do the run sheets, we put all the simple votes on there.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any items of the proposed en bloc that councillors like to remove? Councillor House?
Please, yes. Up to the financial statements, so the SOFA report, the demolition of the airport, Aero Club, the licensing for Microsoft, the progress report on asset management strategy. I'm perplexed how that made it on the list. Development application, all the development applications. I mean, if these development applications are coming to council, it would be remiss of us.
Sorry, Councillor House, it's not debate at this point. We're just getting
Fair
the
enough.
list through.
Fair enough, sorry.
So just to confirm, if you could run through the item number, just so to make sure I've got them, and councillors have got them.
Can I actually also the approval for the tender? So the sporting fields and parks, 14.63, and I would say all the development applications. It's I'm understanding under legislation. I would be reluctant to do them all under on block.
Thank you, Councillor House. Thank you, Councillor House. Councillors, is there any other items any councillors would like to withdraw from that much smaller list now? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, it's just in regard to 60 Moran Street. I have a question, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. That item has been withdrawn from the en bloc, so we have to address that when we get to there. Councillors, we happy with the... Sorry, Councillor House, just microphone as well.
Also had 14.33 there, Mr. Deputy, which is the SOFA report.
Thank you, Councillor House.
Thank you.
Right, councillors, bear with me. We'll just do an update to make sure everyone's on the same page. Councillor House, were you looking at the 14.3.2, the accounts payable report as well? Did you mention that, or was just the SOFA? Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you, councillors. With that, so the proposed on block items would be items 14.2.1, 14.2.2, 14.2.3, 14.3.2 and 14.4.3. Can I get a mover for the on block? Councillor Della, seconder. Councillor House. Councillor Della, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor House? No? Any councillors like to speak to the item? Neil, with that, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Passed 7-0.
Do we want to deal with the items the gallery members are here for early?
Thank you, Councillor House. We We can. Which items in particular were you referring to?
I think it was the Butler Street development, and was there an application also too for Training Alliance Group? Oh, for the grants program. Yes, thank you.
Bear with me, please, councillors. Wonderful, councillors. So we'll be looking at items 14.7.1, which is the development application amendment to approved educational establishments of lot 221 60 Moran Street. And then following that, we will move to item 14.7.4. If councillors can make note of that. Councillors all across it. I will give a moment more. It is quite a large agenda. It is displayed on the screen as well, councillors, if that does help. So, councillors, first we'll consider item 14.7.1, the development application amendment to approved educational establishment, lot 221, number 60 Moran Street, Boulder, 6432. There is an officer's recommendation. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? I'm happy to wait. My apologies. Moved by Councillor House. Thank you. Is there a seconder to this item? Seconded by Councillor Viskovich. Councillor House, would you like to speak to this item? No. Councillor Viskovich, would you like to speak to this item? No. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor Johnson.
Yes, just Mr Mayor, it's just a point of clarification. This is a development application and it's for one group moving in, one group moving out. Yeah, that's right. Just question, is the group moving in a not-for-profit organisation?
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Mr CEO, Acting CEO.
Through yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor, no, they're not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillors, would any councillors like to speak to this item? No. Councillor House, you have the right to reply, but there's been nothing there. So we will go to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. That is passed 7-0. Councillors will now scroll forward to item 14.7.4, the development application for 4 group dwellings D68/25 at 20 Butler Street, Piccadilly. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation there. Do we have a mover of this? Councillor House, a question? Microphone, please.
Thank you. My question is confirming that a traffic impact or a traffic management report was prepared in association with this development.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
I would have to refer to the Director on that one.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, this does not meet the requirements to require a traffic management plan.
Thank you, Director. Councillor House, a supplementary.
Could we understand what those reasons are? As the presentation has rightly pointed out, and as per the report, the bedrooms have 24 bedrooms, which makes that potentially capable of 24 cars. And I think it would be important that we understand the reason why we wouldn't be able to seek detailed information on the traffic.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
Once again, refer to the Director.
While in theory that is possible, that there could be an indication of multiple vehicles, the R codes do permit up to 6 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms. So there's no relevant planning considerations that trigger the requirements provided for requiring a traffic management study. The development doesn't exceed the thresholds set down in guidelines. 6 bedroom, 6 bathroom homes do comply with the R codes for group dwellings.
Thank you, Director. Councillor House, one final question.
Can I please ask the Director, is it capable or is it within Council's remit to ask for such a study?
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO, I'm assuming through to the Director. Thank you, Director.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Council could in theory, seek to defer the item and request information. At the end of the day, the Council is required to make a timely decision, but a deferral would be an option. The applicant would have the right, should Council instead refuse the application, to appeal it to SAP. But there is the potential, should Council request, to defer and seek further information. Whether we could require a traffic management plan, given it's not provided for, that would be the additional time required to seek that advice.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, I don't believe we have a mover yet of this item. I will call for a mover again. An alternative, Councillor House? Yes.
Can I ask that this item be laid on the table and the officers request the applicant to provide a traffic management study, and with particular focus around the relationship with the development and the school, to really understand what those impacts would be, and if and how we can potentially mitigate those potential risks if identified.
Thank you, Councillor House. Bear with us. We'll just get it up on the screen to ensure it's capturing what you're proposing as well. Councillor House, can you build on that to provide a bit of assistance for staff on this one?
I can. It's usually easier if I'm sitting and I type it. That Council, alternate recommendation that Council lay the item on the table pending a traffic management study prepared by the applicant. I think I'll keep the study broad, so won't be specific regarding the school or the parking. We'll leave that up to the applicant to identify those risks and advise how they'll ameliorate those risks.
Thanks, Councillor House. If we could add the word on the table, pending a traffic management study as well, please. Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Councillor House, would you be comfortable if it was that Council defer, just otherwise it can't come back to Council for consideration? Thank you, Councillor House. Defer the item. If we can remove on the table. Thank you. Does that capture Councillor House? Thank you. Councillors, there is an alternative recommendation. Councillor House has moved. Is there a seconder for this alternative? Councillor Walker-Dunstan. Councillor House, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I would, Mr Mayor. First, I'd like to say there were two great presentations tonight, very, very well articulated, and very good to see that people are coming in and they're asking questions, and it's our responsibility to make sure we give them those answers. I think it was even a more astute presentation, because both presentations struck at planning reasonable justifications. And it's very narrow window in planning world on what things you can and can't bring up for clarification or submission. So parking is definitely one of those. I would have other concerns regarding amenity and the like, but I want to also keep this in the conversation that we need to be flexible with regards to how we approve developments and be working with the understanding we do have housing pressures. And if somebody is going to present a solution that's innovative, it does touch at the heart of what we're trying to address. I'd be really reluctant to kind of spook them off or to scare them off, but I would also be reluctant that we didn't address the risks that they potentially that arise from this proposal. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor House. Councillor Walker-Dunstan.
I just wanted to thank the people who presented tonight, the information which actually added to what we've read in the reports. I did actually have concerns coming tonight, knowing that there was a potential of more than 24 cars could be coming from one location. So I thank Councillor Haas for giving us an amendment. I think that we should actually look at this a little bit closer. I do understand that we do have a shortage of accommodation in the town, but we also need to understand those that are living in the area need to be respected as well, and our children need to be safe in their going to school. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Councillor Walker-Dunstan. Do we have a speaker against? A speaker for? A speaker against? Councillor Viskovich.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate the community members raising their concerns, and I do applaud them for coming forward. However, with the desperate need of housing and the delays that seem to have already occurred with this development, the details of the report says that it has been under quite some scrutiny, and I believe any further assessment that is necessary should have already been brought or completed prior to coming to council. So I believe that the development has already been assessed and we should be putting forward this application tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. Mr. Acting CEO, I do have a question in regards to, based on the response from the Director, on what position this would place the council potentially sitting in if a traffic management study is not required, or if it's deemed to be excessive to the requirement of a development application. Am I able to get some advice on this before we move forward, please?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, my recommendation would be to leave the reference to requiring a traffic management study out of the resolution and defer it to seeking further information on traffic impacts or something that officers can prepare. We cannot require a traffic management study to be prepared in these situations. It has to follow the requirements under the R codes, and it doesn't meet the threshold where it would be a reasonable requirement.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Della, do you have a question?
Thank you, through to the Director as well. Is there the capacity to have the traffic study or your recommendation as a point 17 on the actual officer's recommendation?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, no, that wouldn't be, again, a relevant planning consideration to determine this matter. It must be done in regards to the Act and the regs. If council, and that I hear the difference in debate, if council did want further information, we do consider the report provides the relevant information and advice from officers that is relevant to making a planning decision. But that would be what would happen is whether there is any different or further information that could be expanded upon than in the report, but it couldn't require a traffic management study. It would just be further offer advice or clarification that might be considered, but it is considered. This report does cover the requirements you need to make a planning decision.
Thank you, Director. Follow-up? No? Councillor House, a question?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. My question is, who determines reasonableness?
Thank you, Councillor House.
Requirement without risk of appeal and overturn with significant legal expense to council if that was an unreasonable planning condition to require any additional parking or traffic management implications.
Thank you, Director. Supplementary question, Councillor House?
Yes, please. I hope we can transcribe that one because I didn't follow any of that, quite frankly. My question was, who determines reasonableness? So does council have the discretion to determine that something is reasonable, to explore further, to have more information to inform its decision making?
Thank you, Councillor House. Through the Acting CEO and through to the Director.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. As explained, there are certain aspects of planning where the city may have discretion. This is not considered one of those. It complies with the R codes for 2 parking bays. However, if council did seek further explanation, then the likely course is to just defer the item without a specific requirement, and then potentially through questions on notice or inquiries we could provide further information should it come back to council. However, it is unlikely to be able to provide any different advice than the requirement for 2 parking bays for this type of use.
Thank you, Director. Councillor House, as the mover of the alternative recommendation, would you consider a amendment to be, as opposed to specifying the traffic management study itself, to do the wording that the council defer the item pending further information prepared by the, wouldn't be prepared by the applicant, it'd be prepared by city officers?
Mr Deputy, the clear answer is no. I won't be satisfied with that because it's very important that we're specific, we're clear about what we're wanting to be studied, and we're also mindful that we've had a community request come in and asking this information. I consider this just part of the natural process of consultation. We need to answer the questions, and I think the best way to do that is we ask the applicant to do that through the study.
Thank you, Councillor House. Councillors, I will put it back out for anyone who'd like to speak for the item, speak against. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This has been going for nearly a year under the information I've received. The Director has got up and said that the applicant has met the criteria, and that is why the officer recommendation is to approve this, subject to all those stringent restrictions. I was taught when I first came under council, if it meets planning criteria, the applicant, and we knock it back, they just go to SAT. They just go to Perth and get things done. This, if the community wants, as an example, one car bay per room, per dwelling, I can then that's fine. But it's a state government matter. They're the ones that implement the planning, rules, regulations, and everything like that. We just follow our planning section follows the rules. And in this instance, they followed the rules, and I will not be supporting the amended motion.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Any councillors speaking in favour? Against? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, look, in this case, I'll be supporting Councillor House in regards to this one. Seeking information, public come in and they seek information. That's what it's good to see. To have this sit on the table and come back at another meeting means that everything's been done. The ticks and crosses have all been done, and then there's no dispute over it. There's probably no one around this table, all bar one, that has some knowledge with planning. I'm no expert at it. I'd rather have all the information before I decide to make my call on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Speaker against? Speaker for? Before the mover has a right to reply, I will speak against at this point. My only concern is speaking against this. I agree with yourself, Councillor Johnson, and yourself, Councillor House, and the request for more information. More information is never a bad thing. My only concern is that it's being prepared by the applicant, and I'm not clear on if we can actually request that of an applicant without being in breach of something somewhere. So my only concern is the applicant's preparing this information. I'm not comfortable with that at this point in time. Councillor House?
Okay, you go.
Councillor Johnson?
Can't speak twice, so just saying it's a point of order. We're in debate, we're about to conclude debate, you finished debate, so we're basically done.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor House, you do have the right of reply as the mover.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, and thank you, Deputy. The importance of information and having well-informed decisions, I don't have to convince anybody of that. If I have to convince the audience, the chamber tonight that we have the legal right to ask for this information, and we have it's upon us to make sure that if somebody's asking a safety question, we have an answer for them. And I think that they've been really reasonable questions. The opportunity here is deferring the item, or alternatively, as Councillor Della was alluding to, is there an opportunity to do it another way? Yes, there is, because you can put it as a condition of development. So we can simply say that your proposal doesn't progress past the building application stage until you produce a traffic management study that demonstrates safety. That would appease the progress, so it's not standing on the hose, but it does enter risk into the applicant's system, because if they can't achieve the study's requirements, that they do run the risk of having to turn around a big Titanic.
Thank you, Councillor House. As dissent has been raised, we will put this to a vote. All those in favour of the alternative recommendation, please raise your hand. All those against? The alternative recommendation is lost, 3 votes to 4. With that in mind, councillors, we will revert now back to the original officer's recommendation. And can I please call for a mover of the original officer's recommendation? Councillor O'Donnell, a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Della, and a question, Councillor Della.
Would I be able to ask the officer for a recommendation of how we add a point 17 to ensure that there is, in some capacity, a study done for safety in that environment?
Mr. Acting CEO.
Once again, defer to the Director.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO.
If Council was to consider, I assume, another alternate motion or an amendment, a condition could be worded to the effect that prior to a building permit being issued, however you want to word further information around traffic and traffic safety to the satisfaction of the city is to be provided in a suitable report, for example. The risk is, again, that the reasonableness of that condition could be challenged by the applicant, and that's the advice of officers, is that is a risk that you undertake with potential appeal to SAT.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Dallin?
I would like to have that included, if we can, where the officer recommends the best place for it to go, in that we've heard tonight the concerns from the residents in the area, and that would be a major concern for myself if that was in my neighbourhood as well.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillor O'Donnell, as the mover of this item, would you be happy with that amendment? Yes, and obviously, Councillor Della, you're happy as the seconder. We'll just get that captured to ensure all councillors are across it. yes, Councillor House. As long as it's just on wording, no debate at this point.
If you put the city to the satisfaction of the city, it's redundant. It doesn't come back to council.
Point of information, if I may.
Councillor Johnson.
We're in the middle of a debate. We're in the middle of doing an alternative motion. Once that alternative motion is on the table, then any others can be put in with the satisfaction of the mover and the seconder. We can't do it on the right thing.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. The request was around the wording, to ensure that the wording was there. Councillor Donnell. As the mover, Councillor Donnell, it's yourself that's put it through as an amendment. Councillor Della has offered it through. Councillor Donnell, Councillor Della, that was the wording you guys were looking. Thank you very much. Councillor Donnell, as the mover of the amended motion, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Enough has been said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnell. Councillor Della.
Thank you to the officer for making those changes on the run. I think we do need to look at housing in the area. We absolutely need housing, but I applaud the local residents for coming in and making it a priority that council understand their concerns in the area, and moving forward, hopefully we can come to a suitable an arrangement moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Any councillors like to speak against the item? Councillor House.
To my point that I was making before, if you list that as to the satisfaction of the city, it doesn't come back to council. We won't actually know what the study says. So it is completely redundant asking for it to be part of the city satisfaction. The reason that you have city satisfaction is because we are giving the officers the responsibility to make sure it's being done correctly. In this case, we're asking for a study and we don't know if it has been done correctly. So it's upon us to know what that information says and how does that study impact the proposed development.
Thank you, Councillor House. Councillor speaking in favour of the item. Speaking against. Speaking for. The mover has the right to reply.
I have no issue this coming back to the approval to the satisfaction of the city. We have directors, we have managers, we have staff in place that we can rely on, we can trust, and they are very good at their job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnell. We will put this item to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? The item is 4 votes to 3. With that, councillors, we will move back. Bear with me. On page 11, we'll be moving to item 14.1.1, the Civic event fee waiver delegation. I will give councillors a moment to get back to that point. Thank you, Councillor House. We'll address that one in 1 moment. Members of the public gallery, please feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like as well, but you are welcome to also depart at any point as well. It is likely to be quite a long meeting, so please feel free to move forward. Councillors, we are on item 14.1.1, the Civic event fee waiver delegation. Councillor House, you've indicated an alternative recommendation for this item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor, do I read that out now?
If you can, please, Councillor House. It is on the screen if that does help as well.
It surely does. Thank you. Can I speak to that motion?
Just, if you can just state the item first, we need to
Sure.
call for a second before we can go from there.
Cool. That council in the 26-27 budget establishes a zero value for all council fees and charges to A, the use of civic buildings, B, event fees associated with a civic activity. So the zero fee policy, and I'm flexible on the policy part, shall apply exclusively to not-for-profit or community groups serving the need to drive these civic events, and endorses public officers to present amendments to existing policies to reflect this change and to identify and amend supporting procedures accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor House. Can I have a seconder for this alternative recommendation? From the room, Councillor Walker-Dunstan as a seconder. Councillor House, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I would, thank you. I asked a question of the officers at the agenda briefing as to whether they could describe for us the comparison between putting on a zero fee into the schedule of charges or to amend the delegations register to enable for a discount. Haven't seen that information come through, so I'm not sure why that hasn't come through. But as an alternative, failing to have that information, I think this is the safest and cleanest way to deal with this particular item. I'm not sure really what the, if there's a driving need from the community, but there is from the civic groups who are using these services. And so if they're asking us the question for a fee waiver, I would be very reluctant to say you can have 80% and not be able to justify the other 20. So I think the cleanest way to do this is a zero fee, and the officers create the internal documents to govern that.
Thank you, Councillor House. Councillor Walker-Dunstan. No, not a problem. Councillors, I'll first go to, is there any councillors like to speak against the item? Councillor O'Donnell.
I have no issue with the original officer recommendation. It covers everything, and we stick to the game plan, and the original officer recommendation covers everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Speaker for the item? Speaker against? Councillor Della.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll be speaking against this amended motion tonight, just in that this hasn't been brought to us by the not-for-profit sector. This has been identified by staff that there appears to be a gap in fee waiving capability, and this tidies it up for those civic events across the city. In previous meetings, the staff have also indicated that if it was to go to the wider community groups and not-for-profits, there would be a little bit more work need to be done to understand the costings that it's going to cost the city as well. So we need to be, I suppose, very clear, and I have a very comprehensive understanding that these civic events are essential to the fabric of our community. So I'm willing to and quite comfortable supporting the officer's recommendation this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillor House, I just have a question, if I may. Based on the alternative recommendation, Anzac Day would still end up paying this year.
In terms of the particulars, I must leave that to others to qualify those things. But from a really simple, straightforward perspective, it's civic. Civic means we're involved. We have to be involved. So my point is...
Sorry, Councillor House, it's referring to the 26-27 budget, not the 25-26 budget.
It would be redundant putting it in the 25-26 fees and charges schedule, because we will be reconsidering those in the not too distant future with the fees and charges schedule. I believe we've got a workshop coming up next. This is the next workshop, isn't it? Fees and charges schedule. So if it's placed onto the, that's the formal place to do that, and that's how I'd recommend administratively for streamlining.
Thank you, Councillor Hans, for answering my question. I will do a final call out for any councillor who'd like to speak in favour of the item. Speak against. Before the move has the right of reply, my apologies. I'm actually going to speak against the alternative recommendation, although I do agree with the approach that Councillor House is going. I don't think it addresses the current issue that we have in 25-26 with Anzac Day just around the corner. I'd hate to see them being caught paying a fee, which the intent of the officer's recommendation is looking to reduce. I completely agree. I'd like to see not-for-profits and community groups getting as much support as possible, and I commend the move to look at zero-fee options. I do think we can capture that in the original officer's recommendation under point 4, and alternatively, if councillors weren't satisfied at that time, I'd be very keen to see that brought back as a notice of motion potentially to do some further work around the fees and charges as a bit of a workshop. I'd just be really keen to see what that workshop, as Councillor House identified that's coming up, does bear first before we commit, and I feel we've got enough time to still be able to do that for an item potentially come back in May. I just need to ensure that the Anzac Day guys and the RSLs aren't wearing a cost where they don't need to at this point in time. Councillor House, you do have the right to reply.
There's some really valid points, and I 100% agree. The intent of my motion would be so that they don't pay, and I would be more than flexible in terms of adjusting my alternate motion to enable that. But to your point as well, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, if I was to forward my hand or lose, the opportunity is to discuss it more broadly, and if I cop one on the chin for that, and we get to discuss it more broadly and have something more concrete, then I'll take it.
Thank you, Councillor House. Councillors, we will put this item now to the vote. All those in favour of the alternative recommendation, please raise your hand. All those against? The item is defeated, 2 votes to 5. With that, we will go back to the officer's recommendation as it stands. Can I please have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Johnson, a seconder, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Johnson would like to speak to.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of things in there. Under the report of the item presented by the officers, basically we do have 100% now in place. We do have 100% for a number of events, so we don't have to go down that pathway. The CEO has the authority to discount fees by up to 80%, requiring a minimum payment of 20%, unless full council approval is sought. So that there can happen. I can see where things are going. It just means we don't have to go backwards and forwards. But I would be very surprised if when this gets discussed again, going into budget time, the things that Councillor House is aiming for will more than likely fall into line in any case. So as it is now, supporting what you were saying, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that it's worthwhile waiting for that and bringing that up in budget and cleaning it up there.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor O'Donnell, as the second, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. You brought a positive step there where you were saying we need to ensure this year is covered, and that's the priority. And then, as Councillor Johnson said, going forward, we can discuss changing and varying things for next year, 26-27. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Is there any councillor who'd like to speak against the item? Against, Councillor House?
Yes, I've moved the alternate motion. It doesn't, I mean, if we're going to get into the technicalities of it, administratively, it doesn't make sense why we amend a delegations register to enable for a discount or a waiving of a fee. I just can't understand the administrative logic to that when there is multiple ways to do this differently. I asked the question, can the officers demonstrate that for us? And I thought that was a reasonable question. they've chosen not to answer that, I've had no other choice but to put up an alternate motion, failing that information. If I get defeated here, I'll keep pushing with the fees and do it through another means.
Thank you, Councillor House. Any councillors like to speak in favour of this officer's recommendation? Against? For? Before the move has right of replay, I will be speaking in favour of this item. As I highlighted previously in the alternative resolution that was presented, I appreciate and I agree with the intent that councillors around the table are going to get, and by no means do I think any councillor want to see our community groups, particularly our civic events, wearing fees where they don't need to, and I can clearly see that councillors are in support of that based on comments. I just need to ensure that we've got something in place now, and I'm also keen to explore what it looks like moving forward, as Councillor House has raised and other councillors as well, of what else we can do for our community in whatever capacity that may look like, and that I feel will be hashed out a little bit further as we work through the budget process for 26-27. The mover has the right of reply.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just like to bring to councillors' attention that the officers have actually made that very comment that you were just talking about, Deputy Mayor. Under the report, to improve efficiency and reduce administrative costs, it's proposed that council provide delegated authority to the CEO to waiver 100% of fees for civic, commemorative and ceremonial events capped at $500 per event. So that is there. That's in the context of the motion itself. It's also item 1 in the motion, so that is covered off. The following events are run by external community groups, and it's proposed that they will be 100% free, fee waived, and that is again reflected in the council recommendations by officers. So on that, I think maybe a long way of getting around to it, but it's good to have the discussion, and I'm sure there'll be further discussion when we come to budget time. I would like to move this and encourage other members around this table to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillors, we will put this item now to the vote. All those in favour of the item, please raise your hand. All those against? The item is passed 6 votes to 1. We now move on to item 14.1.2, the CEO Recruitment Committee. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation. However, that recommendation currently does contain some blank spots. As per the current existing recommendation, point 4 does require the name of 2 councillors to be appointed to the CEO Selection Committee. Just checking that's anything we need. Yes. I will call for any further nominations, but at the current moment, the following councillors have expressed interest to be considered for this position. We currently have Councillor Della, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Viskovich, Councillor House, and the Deputy Mayor. Councillors, is there any other councillors which would like to put their name forward for consideration? Nil at this point. Wonderful. With that in mind, because there is 2 vacancies and there are 5 councillors expressing interests, we will go to a ballot. So on your table is a sheet of paper which does have the word ballot written on the top. If councillors can please, actually I might hand this across to the acting CEO as opposed to myself pushing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. If you can please put your first name as number 1 and then your second name as number 2, and I'll collect the ballots and count up the first 2 positions.
Just a reminder, councillors, the councillors which have nominated are Councillor Della, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Viskovich, Councillor House, and the Deputy Mayor. Have all councillors provided their vote? Yes, thank you. Mr Acting CEO, would you mind counting the vote? Thank you, councillors. So the result of the voting, it's very close, but thank you. It's my favourite pen. Thank you very much. As a result of the voting, the two names to appoint under item 4 in item A is Councillor Winner, and in B is Councillor Della. Thank you, councillors. So that is now updated. Thank you very much. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation. Do we have a mover of that recommendation? Councillor Viskovich, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Councillor Viskovich, would you like to speak to this item? No. Councillor Johnson? No. Councillors, any councillors like to speak for the item? Speak against? Speak, clarification question? Yes, Councillor House.
In terms of reference, Mr Deputy, how's it captured? I can't see it in the resolution. If we're not adopting in terms of reference tonight with this proposal, I don't know what we're actually deciding on.
Councillor House, item 3 is endorse the terms of reference for the committee as set in attachment 8.
That's pretty obvious.
So your question is we're not adopting a terms of reference?
Well, that is an important nuance, whether endorse or adopt. Is there a difference? Do we have to be mindful of that?
Thank you, Councillor House. I would take that as a question. Acting CEO, is there a difference in the wording through endorse and adopt in regards to the terms of reference?
No, both will do the same thing.
Thank you. Sorry, councillors. We had Councillor Viskovich move and Councillor Johnson second. There's been no one who has spoken to this yet. Is there anyone who'd like to move, speak for, against, for? Before the mover has the right to reply, I will speak for the item. I think this is, councillors, an extremely important milestone for the city as we move forward in terms of what our future will look like, and that starts with the CEO recruitment component of it. Under terms of reference, we will be seeking out independent members as well, which I think is critical, and it's it's important elements to ensure that we do have that community involvement in there. It's not just councillors completely involved, as the impact is on our entire community. I also note that as part of the terms of reference, there will be a requirement to appoint 2 deputies or proxies as part of this process, and envision that will continue through once councillors receive the list of potential independent members or had the opportunity to also discuss and work through that as well. So there is still the opportunity for councillors to still be involved in that proxy / deputy role as well. Councillor Viskovich, as the mover, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to confirm, just to say that I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea that we've got this committee being adopted. I believe also that the training that the committee is going to be provided is a great idea and an important part of properly establishing the committee. I hope that it will set a clear expectation from the very beginning that what their role is as part of employing the CEO in our beautiful Kalgoorlie-Boulder, that they are of great importance of the committee that they're going to be a part of. So I appreciate you guys putting your hands up, and all the best.
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. We will put this item to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is carried 7-0. Item 14.2.1 was part of the on-block agenda, as was item 14.2.2 and item 14.2.3. We'll now move on to item 14.3.1, the 2025-26 rate concessions applications. As I have a conflict of interest, I'll be leaving the room. Councillor Della will take the chair in my absence.
Thank you, councillors. I'll ask for a mover for 14.3.1, the 2025-26 rates concession application. Yes, Councillor House.
Thank you. At the agenda briefing, I asked the question of officers whether they could give us some details or describe how we communicate this rates concession to the broader public, and so that others were aware of this opportunity. To the best of my knowledge, that information hasn't come through. Are the officers able to elaborate on that before we resolve on the item?
I'll direct that through to the acting CEO.
I'll have the director come to the set.
Through the chair, acting chair. So this information is available to ratepayers through our website. However, taking on board the comments from last week's agenda briefing, we're going to look throughout the year for more opportunities to make this more well known in the community. So we're going to do this a bit ongoing to see what more we can do.
Thank you, Director Jaeger. Councillors, I'll now ask for a mover of item 14.3.1. Councillor Johnson, and a seconder, Councillor O'Donnell. I'll ask the mover if you want to speak.
Yes, thank you, Acting Chair. I had to think about that for a while. And I'll start with a question, if I may. This is for 25-26, so we're rolling into the budget coming up. But then we're going into 27-28, so this is retrospective. So it is retrospective, okay. I support this. The community groups that are not-for-profit and those that do great things for our community can gain access to this particular, the funding there to help them out with their rates. I think it's an initiative by council which is a good one, but it is probably one that could also be extended further out with a greater reach, and I know the officers are working on that greater reach now. So I hope councillors around the table support this. I'd also like to bring up one that tonight we had an item come up to council, and that item was to do with a change of ownership, and we do note that recommended to us that because they're a non-for-profit organisation, they may not qualify. Okay. Councillors around the table, I do hope you support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor O'Donnell as the seconder.
Thank you. Yes, some of these are very good associations. We've got the GVRock. It's one of the biggest and helps many of our residents within the community with disabilities. Life Without Barriers and Wansley Limited. And then you go down to able-bodied associations like the Kalgoorlie Bowling Club and Boulder Bowling Club, along with the Boulder Rifle Club and the Eastern Goldfields Clay Target Club. It's great to see that we can assist and support them in some way for these not-for-profits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillors, Councillor Viskovich, do you have a question?
Yes, please, Acting Chair. I just wanted to clarify, there's a applicant listed in there that seems to be a block of units. I'm just wondering if I can receive some clarification around that.
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. I'll direct your question to the Acting CEO.
To be more clear, it's on Egan Street.
That is GVRock.
Thank you, councillors. I'll now call for speakers against. Speaker for. Speaker against. Since there has been no councillors speaking against this motion tonight, I will have Councillors Johnson write a reply.
Yes, thank you. It's great to see that it's endorsed around the table, and moving forward, we'll see what occurs next year, and with those that we can reach out to as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I'll now have councillors raise their hand for those in favour of item 14.3.1. Thank you. That was passed 6-0. I'll now have the acting deputy mayor, the deputy mayor, acting mayor, back in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillors, item 14.3.2 was on block, so we'll move to item 14.3.3, the monthly statement of financial activity, February 2026. There is the officer's recommendation. Do we have a mover of this recommendation? A question? Sure, Councillor Walker-Dunstan, a question.
This is 14.3.3, that's the legal advice. Is that correct, that item? I got that one.
Item 14.3.3 is the monthly statement of financial activity.
In there, there's a item for the legal advice. I was wondering if I get clarification what the transaction for $37,000 for Minter Ellis is.
Thank you, Councillor Walker-Dunstan. Mr. Acting CEO. Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. Councillor Walker-Dunstan, the Acting CEO's, you happy to get in? Sorry, Mr. Acting CEO, do you want to turn the mic on just to clarify that for Councillor Walker-Dunstan?
Councillor Walker-Dunstan looking at the accounts payable and not the SOFA. The accounts payable was passed on block.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. So, councillors, I'll call once again if I can have a mover of this item. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Della. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak to this item? Nil. Councillor Della? No. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? No. With that, then, I will put the item to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Oh, that's carried 7-0. Thank you. Councillors will move now on to item 14.4.1, GVRock, Memorandum of Understanding for 2026 to 2028. There is our officer's recommendation. Councillors, just so we're aware, this is an absolute majority vote as well. Can I please have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Moved by Councillor Viskovich, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Councillor Viskovich would like to speak to the item.
Point of clarification, if I may.
Sure.
Just confirming, should we not have a CEO in place? Should we have a acting CEO or director in place?
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. Acting CEO. I believe you're referring to item 2. Thank you.
The acting CEO takes on the CEO responsibilities, so the item passes as per.
Councillor Viskovich, as the mover, you also have the right to speak to item. Not taken. The second was Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just in regards to this, the GVRock is an organisation that is made up of small councils around us and going basically nearly half the state, which is fantastic. And they do great things, and the advocacy in the background is massive. I've found with being a member of this group for quite a while now that the information that they seek, the information that they bring back, and the advocacy that they do in the space of local governments and state and federal governments is outstanding. So I just seek the total support of this from others around this table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any councillors like to speak against the item? Speak for. Councillor Della.
Thank you. I would like to echo Councillor Johnson's comments, and the GVRock is integral to small local governments in that it gives us a voice, and it gives us a broader voice rather than just Kalgoorlie-Boulder. So this is a contribution from the city to be a part of this. It holds great weight once we move into state and federal requests and advocacy. So I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Speaker against. Councillor House.
Point of clarification, we have a recommendation here regarding GVRock, but we also have in the officer's recommendation, we have budget implications. Was there a reason why we're not including the budget implications or the budget itself as a council recommendation?
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The budget implications are for next year, so they will go with the budget discussion that goes forward with council.
Councillor House, a supplementary.
So therefore, this is going to run forward without a budget, or so if this it's saying the report's saying we need a budget of $35,000, how is that $35,000 going to go onto a budget? That's my question.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
Councillor House, through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor House, the budget's already for this year. Next year's budget will be part of the budget process for next year.
So
Councillor House.
So just clarifying, so how do the officers know to put something on the budget agenda? Or so how do they know how to list something? Would it come from a report?
Oops, microphone was off. Thank you, Councillor House. There is a capacity to offer an alternative or an amendment motion here, Councillor House, if you'd like to see a figure, the actual figure included as part of this resolution.
a legitimate question the officers have put into a report. Talking about budget implications, so something that we're going to have to pay for, and it's not addressed in the recommendation. So,
Thank you, Councillor House. So the question is, why is not included in the officer's recommendation?
or more to the point, why is it recorded in the report? So if we're talking about the memorandum of understanding, that should be in isolation of anything really other than the memorandum of understanding. So really, my question is, why are we talking about in the budget implications a $35,000 hit to the budget if it's not necessary to talk about it? If it is being spoken about in the agenda, I've got to assume it has some importance, and we should resolve on that and make sure that the officers can budget for that next financial year.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through yourself. Councillor House, by approving the attachment, which has your budget attached to it, you're approving the budget.
Mr Acting CEO. We will put it back out for councillors which want to speak for the item, speak against. Councillor House.
As I've said, happy to support GVRock. To be frank, I'm not sure what value, and I don't think it's $35,000 worth of value we get from GVRock. So if we're going to speak about it in the... Are you guys right? You finished?
Councillor House, just if you could continue.
I'd like to understand, if we're talking about the report and it has $35,000 identified by the officers, that we speak about it as a budgetary item, that we don't just later down the track go, well, $35,000 was mentioned in the report, therefore it's a foregone conclusion, it gets funded. Or the memorandum of understanding infers budgetary support. That's what the officers are saying, and I can't support that. Legally, we can't support that.
Thank you, Councillor House. Any other councillor to speak for the item? Councillor Johnson, you were the seconder. Unfortunately, you were not able to speak again. Any other councillor to speak for? Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. The GVRock is a very important component of the goldfields. It brings together all the local councils right across the board. And I've been to various meetings over my time here and as an observer. And they pass information on to each other. They try to work in collaboration with each other. And a $35,000 contribution is mentioned there as a budget implication. It's to let us know that $35,000 is what we spend by being a member of GVRock. And when you go down to the officer recommendation, I don't believe it needs to have in there, point 3, we recommend we allocate 35,000. No. And 35,000 is a very small amount of money for the benefits of being involved with GVRock. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Speaker against? Speaker for?
Procedural motion, if I may.
Councillor
Deputy Mayor.
Viskovich.
11.1 D, that the question now be put. Please.
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. Councillors, bear with me one moment. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Viskovich has moved a procedural motion that the item now be put. There is not a requirement for a seconder on this item, as Councillor Viskovich has not spoke. So we will move to the vote. However, the mover of the item, that was it. Yeah, that's done. However, sorry, councillors. Mr Acting CEO, as Councillor Viskovich is the mover of the item, can she then call a procedural motion, given that she has already spoken to the item? Councillors, I would like to remind you of conduct around the table, please. Councillor O'Donnell. Sorry, one moment, Councillor O'Donnell. Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Unfortunately, Councillor Viskovich, we can't accept that procedural motion as you have already spoken as the mover of the item and you're unable to do it twice. Councillor Donald, you had a question?
No, I wanted to raise a point that while you weren't looking and listening, Councillor House is making comments towards...
Sorry, Councillor Donald, so you're calling a point of order?
Yes, point of order, thank you. Thank you.
Can you are we able to refer to which point of order?
I haven't got the number in front of me, but Councillor House is out of order. In fact, I regard as bullying Councillor Viskovich.
Okay, councillors, I will remind councillors about the conduct within the ordinary council meeting, and we are bound by both our code of conduct and our standing orders. If all councillors can please remember to abide by that moving forward, and we can continue the meeting from there. Thank you. With that, I will move back into calling for debate. That being said, I believe I'm the only person left to speak on this item, and at this point in time, I won't be. So I'll move back to the mover, Councillor Viskovich. Would you like the right of reply? Nil. So we will move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? The item is passed 6-1. We now move on to item 14.4.2, the Regional Precincts and Partnership Program Funding Agreement. Councillor O'Donnell, you have recorded a financial conflict and will now leave the room. Councillors,
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Dallin.
Before we begin, would I be able to include an impartial?
Thank you, Councillor Della. If we're able to get a form for Councillor Della to complete, please. Thank you, Councillor Della. Do note that Councillor Della has noted a impartiality conflict and a proximity. Both, yep. Based on the work that she conducts within the CBD. Councillors, I will call for a mover of the officer's recommendation for item 14.4.2, the Regional Precincts and Partnership Program Funding Agreement. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Walker-Dunstan. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Walker-Dunstan? No. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? No. With that, we will go to a vote. All those councillors in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. Passed 6-0. If we can please have Councillor O'Donnell, please invite her back into the room. Thank you very much. Councillors, item 14.4.3, the Warrego Climate Change Advocacy position was endorsed on block. So we now move to item 14.5.1, which is the demolition of the Airport Aero Club. There is an officer's recommendation, councillors. Can I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Viskovich, seconded by Councillor Walker-Dunstan. Councillor Viskovich, would you like to speak to this item? No. Councillor Walker-Dunstan, would you like to speak to this item? No. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor House, for or against? Against.
Against this item, Mr. Mayor. For the pure fact that since 2018 we have been master planning at the airport. The councillors have just supported the precinct planning for the airport. Whether it's ironic, coincidental, or timing that the next item is about the airport, and we just tick the box. I'm just not sure what the reason is. Why would we do planning? Why would we master plan the future of the airport and just go, yeah, let's do this? Councillors asked some really great questions at the agenda briefing regarding the master planning and how we're moving forward. I'm very surprised that we're not talking about that tonight. Very surprised.
Thank you, Councillor House. Would any other councillors like to speak on this?
Point of information, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Johnson.
This item has changed since it did come out on Friday, and the item is to do with the demolition of a building at the airport which is full of asbestos, etc., etc., etc. So I'd just like to bring that to everyone's attention if they have missed the change on the officer's recommendation.
Sorry, Councillor Johnson, a question was in there?
Yeah, there was a question in there. There's a point of information, that's what it was, that the item has changed and that point 4 of the officer's recommendation has been removed.
Mr Acting CEO, what's on the board, I actually won't go to you. I can confirm that is the case, Councillor Johnson. Councillors, is any other councillors like to speak on this item? Councillor Della, for or against? For, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation in this. In conversations with the director, it's been noted that point 4 was removed because that did probably venture into, and Councillor House is correct in saying that it probably ventures into the planning of the precinct. This particular recommendation supports a need for this to be done now, and the precinct planning will take some time. So I'm very supportive of the officer's recommendation to have these works carried out now, and work with staff moving forward with the precinct planning as well around the airport. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Any other councillors would like to speak against the item? Speak for, against. Before the mover has the right to reply, I will be speaking in support of the item as well. Now that item point 4 had been updated and effectively removed, I echo the same sentiments as Councillor House, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Della has raised in regards to we were venturing into some territories that I wasn't comfortable with, particularly around an airport master plan. However, now we're doing essential work that needs to be done in that space, and then we can ensure that whatever future projects occur in that space do align with our port master plan moving forward. With that, the mover has the right to reply. Councillor Viskovich.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As most people have mentioned, the change has made quite a significant difference in the officer recommendation. This is one tiny little step, but important step in preparing for our airport upgrade. We are only removing and not installing, so I support this motion and hope the people around the table do too.
Thank you, Councillor Visvich. We will now put the item up for a vote. All those councillors in favour, please raise your hand. Against? The item is passed 6-1. Councillors, we now move to item 14.5.2, which is RFT 26013 Microsoft Licensing and Subscription Management Agreement. There is an officer's recommendation. Councillors, can I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? A question, Councillor House?
I can't see how many licenses this subscription will provide to the organisation.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr. Acting CEO.
I would need to defer to the director for the number of licenses.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. Director, would you mind taking the lectern?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I do apologise. I do have that figure. I just can't find it. It does cover all of our current employment numbers, and there is ability for that to fluctuate if required through the contract.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor House.
The $300,000 cost, that's an annual cost. That's my understanding. And for me to understand what that will actually service, whether that's 1,000 licenses, 50, 100, it's also important to note that if we do not have this resolved by May, by a certain day in May, we won't have an ERP for the organisation.
Through the Acting CEO, through to the Director.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, that's correct. It has a resolution date required by May.
Thank you. Councillors, we have not yet received a mover for item 14.5.2. I will call again for a mover of this item. Councillor Della, moved, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Councillor Della, would you like to speak to this item? Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak? No. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? Nil. With that, councillors, then we will put this item up to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? The item is passed 6-1. We now move on to item 14.6.1, the Kalgoorlie International Speedway upgrade works. This item, councillors, is an absolute majority voting requirement. There is an officer's recommendation. May I call for a mover of this item? Moved by Councillor Della, seconded. One moment, Councillor House, seconded by Councillor Viskovich. Councillor House, you have a question.
Clarify what we're resolving on. It's just noting the information, isn't it? We're not actually making any actions? That's how I'm reading it?
Mr. Acting CEO.
Through yourself, Mr. Deputy Mayor, yes, that's correct. Councillor Hulse, the initial tender was found to have no tenderers, or none that were used, so we went back to the tenderers that had tendered to try and negotiate a price. That price is not within the budget, so we're only noting that we're going back, giving the CEO the approval to go back to the state and liaise with the state to still deliver the project underneath through the state, not through the city.
Councillor House, a supplementary.
So the intention is to give the money back?
Mr. Acting CEO.
No, not give the money back. Work through the Department of Creative Industry, Tourism and Sport to give them an option that delivers a project and gives no risk to the city of overspending.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. So the item was, we have moved by Councillor Della, seconded by Councillor Viskovich. Councillor Della, would you like to speak to this item? Councillor Della.
Thank you. It'd be disappointing to see the funds handed back to the state government, so I applaud the engineering department and look forward to the CEO being able to work through with the state to ensure a viable outcome for the Speedway.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillor Viskovich, would you like to speak to this item? No. Would any councillors like to speak for the item? Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor. Just in regard, this did come about through a political item that came up as an election promise, but unfortunately it did come up a long time ago, and it's finally got its face around the table. And at that time, the prices also went through the roof. So it's good to see that if the state government want to come back in and contribute more to finish off the projects, it's fantastic. But it's even better to see that our city is very active in looking at these things now with a different slant and going, okay, if it's not fully funded, it's not fully funded, and we'll go as far as we can, but we're not going to carry any can. So moving forward, it's great to see our officers working diligently in that area. I'm hoping also that a resolution can be made with this here and the Speedway can get what they really want out there. They're a great organisation. They do provide lots of stuff for our community, and moving forward, I hope that this does come their way in a big way.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any councillors speak against the item? Councillor House speaking against.
I've been on council for 6 months. This is maybe the 4th or 5th time we've considered this item. I'm really perplexed as to why we're considering an item 4 times and it's actually not doing anything. If I'm the Speedway, I'm going to be furious that we're spending more time considering it around the table than they're actually doing anything on the ground. I'm perplexed as to why we can't spend half the money or part of the money. If this is to help the Speedway, we're standing on the hose. We are standing on the hose, and if we gave the money back to the state, I would dare say the hose would open up. Because it is the state government's money. The state government has asked us to support the program. And from my understanding, that was 2022 where we accepted that money, and we haven't delivered. So my question is, what surety can we give the Speedway that we will deliver a project for them?
Thank you, Councillor House. Speaker.
Point of information.
Question or
question.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, 2017. It was an election commitment in 2017. So the question was, it was election commitment in 2017. I understand, and I can get clarity on this, that it didn't come to us until 2022 or later. I'll get that correct. So where we're sitting is, we as the city don't provide the money, is that right? It is coming from the state, it's not coming out of any of our coffers. So all we're saying is, hey, we're at this point, is that where we're parking ourselves?
Thank you,
and we're making
Councillor.
it very clear.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, and through yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Johnson, you are correct. It didn't come to us until 2022. We've been working diligently to try and deliver this project within the, as decided by council, within the budget parameters. We haven't stood on the hose. We have released some of the money to get through this season. So the Speedway had some fencing that was installed through part of this to get them through the season. The project can't start until post the season this year anyway. So anything we're doing now hasn't stopped the Speedway.
Thank you. I'll call again. Councillors speaking for the item. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. As Councillor Johnson said, 2017, when it was an election commitment, and it doesn't matter which government's in power, and in elections, things are promised. But there's no guarantee when that is going to be coming through, in the first year, the second year, the 4th year, the second term. And in this instance, it was 2017, and it wasn't until mid-2022, as the CEO said, that we agreed to manage the project and administer it. Now, that's 5 years later, prices are going to go through the roof. Now, 9 years later, they've gone past the roof and continued higher. And there's no way in the wide world we can say, all right, here, well, we'll just build one little toilet block for the $2 million. And that we need toilet blocks. We need the track fence. And that's why it needs to go back to the government of the day to say, hold on, what you promised doesn't meet the criteria. Now, you need to put in, as an just another $2 million to get the job done. Now, if they don't want to do it, then that's a broken election promise. They haven't come good with it. So I'm all for this, that we're not going to bend over and just accept it. And that it shows that we're fighting for the Speedway by going back to the government that we need more funds to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Speaker against the item?
What exactly
question?
What exactly were we talking about? Because this is just asking us to note what's happening. There's no actions, so as I understand. So we're not making any request to give the money back. We're not asking for any more money. Is that right?
That is correct, Councillor House, as outlined in point 1 and 2, that we are noting and we are continuing to liaison with the West Australian Department of Creative Industries, Tourism and Sport.
Can I just ask what the councillor was referring to then?
No, not at this point. Thank you, Councillor House. Any councillors like to speak against the item? Speak for? Speak against? Speak for? Before the move has a right to reply, I will briefly speak for the item. As noted by Councillor House and other councillors around the table, at this point in time, councillors, we are noting where this is at. I, much like much of our community and many of us around the table, share the same frustration that this incredible activity that occurs in our community, and it's very well supported within our community, has been waiting since 2017 for an action for a number of reasons. I also appreciate the city became involved. While reluctant to management, did agree to get involved in 2022 to try and move things along in this regards, and through that process identified the key priority works that had to be done. Unfortunately, those works exceed what is offered in the commitments and the funding that's available, which is why point 2 of the officer's recommendation is for me really important, that we continue to have those discussions and look at the best possible outcome for our community. And ultimately that's what we've got to remember at heart here, that we are looking to try and maximise the opportunity within our community and continue to improve the livability of our community by attracting people to want to stay and participate in some great community events such as this. So I do encourage councillors to also support this tonight as we move forward, and I remain hopeful of a resolution. I really do hope it's a lot quicker than, as Councillor O'Donnell said, the 9 years have been waiting to date. We need action on this, and I don't want to be perceived as a blocker, so anything we can do to speed this along is integral. Thank you. The mover has the right of reply. Councillor Della.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the comments around the table. I too agree that we're working better with the state, and this is one example of the city working together and not taking, I suppose, on the financial burden when it is far exceeds what the state commitment is. So working with city officers and the state, the CEO, to find a way forward is important for me, and I think the Kalgoorlie International Speedway to have an upgrade fit for purpose for them is far more important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillors, we'll now put this item to the vote. All those councillors in favour of this item, please raise your hand. The item is passed 7-0. Councillors, we now move on to item 14.6.2, the progress report on asset management strategy development. There is an officer's recommendation. Can I call for a mover of this recommendation? My apologies, Councillor House. I do recall, thank you, Mr Acting CEO, that you did have an alternative. If we could have that alternative displayed on the screen, please. I'll give councillors a moment to review. Thank you, Councillor House. You'll be moving the item. Would you like to please read the alternative recommendation?
I can. That council receive the report detailing the asset management strategy progress. Point 2, approve the engagement of a consultant to complete the necessary strategic asset management plan documentation. Point 3, authorise the CEO to retain a qualified, that's just a nuance there. Authorise the CEO to engage, that should read, or retain, engage a qualified asset management specialist to finalise the strategic asset management plan. This engagement is to also include the provision of training for elected members on service level agreements. Authorise the CEO to allocate an expenditure for this purpose within the range of 50 to 100,000 and completion by no later than July 2026. Ordinary council meeting must consider a strategic asset management plan for adoption.
Thank you, Councillor House. Can I call for a seconder of this alternative recommendation? Councillors, I will second this item. Councillor House.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. But I'm not very confident that it's going to pass. And really disappointingly, I'm perplexed as to why we're not, as a team, driving our needs to have informed decision making. And I've raised this several times tonight about information, ensuring that information is accurate and is presented transparently. I'm asking, the officers have spoken to us in depth about the asset management planning, and they've done a lot of work. They've done a lot of work in that regard. They've done a lot of collection of data, and they've done a lot of pulling together of all that information. If the step that is required, and this is how I'm reading the officers' report, is the breakdown or the bottleneck at the moment are the councillors and our inability to be able to contribute to those service level agreements, and that we need training and we need to do these special things in order to really be qualified to participate in the decision making. Now, I don't agree with that, and I think, but I still think there is value in that as well. So I wouldn't completely want to see that dismissed, and if we're able to get some training or some expertise in that regards to make the outcome better and to make us better councillors, of course, no, I don't think that would just be silly to refuse or ignore that. What I'm asking for tonight is for us to uphold our regulatory requirement, which is to have an informing document for asset management planning. I'm asking that we deliver a budget that is going to be well thought through, transparent, and thinks about our asset management. It's our largest risk. With the $760 million risk that we have, I think it was pointed out the other day, we have the third largest asset pool of any regional local government in Western Australia. So that says to me, of 107 local governments, we're in the top 3. We're the leader in this space, and we don't have those furnished, finalised documents. If I need to put items up like this to push, to make sure that we're getting this type of information, well then that's upon me to do that, because I understand the value of an asset management strategy. It tells us that not tomorrow, not next week, not in a year's time, but in 10 years' time, how we budget for our future infrastructure, how we budget for our landfill, how we fund the airport, how we fund the future wastewater treatment upgrades and infrastructure. So the importance of this document, I can't understate it, and I really feel like we are, as a council, we're undermining that value. And I really encourage council to support this. It doesn't place any extra pressure on the officers, and I would argue it frees them up. It enables them to focus on the projects that they have committed to, and it enables them to bring in an expert to help them as well. So to help them, to help us. Please support my motion.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO, just a quick question from me in regards to procurement timeframes. Is this alternative providing enough time for procurement to take place?
I don't think we've allowed enough time to procure and provide everything that Councillor Hulse has asked for within this motion.
Mr Acting CEO, what sort of timeframe is generally required if this was to be considered?
The current assets team has this timeline to be completed for December this year. There's 7 staff within that team. So that was the timeline. With some extra help, we may be able to push it forward, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and that's all been organised by that team.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. As the seconder, I will be waiving my right to speak on this item, and I'll call for a speaker for the alternative recommendation, a speaker against. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you. We were spoken to by the acting CEO last week in regards to the assets and was blown away with what was involved. And so I took my hat off and asked that they've got 7 staff there doing their best. And I can't agree with forking out $50,000 or $100,000 for somebody to come in and wave their wand in 2 months' time and it's done. If that section said we can have that done by July, if we get some overtime, then the city would have done that. I'm also led to believe that it's software that we have to ensure that our software is compatible to take all the information on, and they're working through that to get that done. And I have no issue with the timeline being December, and they've done a huge amount of work. And I did make the comment last week that I just saw asset management, cars, buildings. No, it's the roads. Roads is a huge thing. I didn't think that was an asset, and so I won't agree to us forking out $50,000 or $100,000 to get somebody to come in here and within 8 weeks it's done, it's dusted. And if we haven't got the software ready to go and that, we're just throwing good money after bad. And so I will not support this.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Speaker for the item? Speaker against? Speaker for? Speaker against? The mover has the right to reply. Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I'm not sure where I've mentioned anything about software or in the report that software is mentioned at all. So I'm very perplexed as to why we're talking about software. Unless there's information that the councillor has that we're not privy to, I'd be more than happy to hear what that information is. And if you don't have that information, councillor, I would ask you to retract your statement because you don't have that information and you're entering information into the Discord.
If we can directly respond through into where we are in terms of the mover's right to reply and not directly engaging with councillors around the table.
My apologies. I honestly believe this won't get up because I just can't tell you why. I really honestly can't tell you why we're not focused on the future of our community. We're councillors, we have the authority and the accountability to ask the officers to provide us this information. And if it's required since 2013 and we still haven't got it and nobody's putting pressure on this document to come to fruition, and we bring in a brand new CEO, and that person's responsibility is to provide us with a well-informed budget. And our first thing to the new CEO is going to be, sorry, we don't have this yet. That is setting the next person up for failure. If we have to spend $50,000 to know how much money we have to invest in our landfill, which is set to close in 10 years' time, what is the plan?
Councillor House, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we can't introduce new information into your closing remarks. So,
yep.
Thank you very much, Councillor House. Councillors, the item has been heard and we'll now move to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? The item is defeated, 3 votes to 4. We'll now move back to the original officer's recommendation. May I call for a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Donald. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak? No. Councillor Donald. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? No. With that, councillors, we'll move to a vote. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. All those against? The item is carried, 5 votes to 2. Councillors, we now move on to item 14.6.3, which is the approval to award RFT 26012, upgrade Stage 2 sporting fields and parks. There is an officer's recommendation. May I call for a mover of that recommendation? Councillor O'Donnell, question.
Apologies, I've got an interest in this. It was remiss of me, and I wasn't thinking. I'm on the Football Commission for digger doors, which use digger doors and sewage mall. Do you want me to vacate?
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. It's up to you what type of conflict you wish to declare.
It's not financial.
So impartiality. Thank you. If we could get Councillor O'Donnell a form to update. That's quite all right. As Councillor O'Donnell has stated an impartial conflict, and he has stated for Council what it is, I'm happy to continue forward. So with that, we will call for a mover of the officer's recommendation. Moved by Councillor Johnson, a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Della. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak to the item? Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you. I know there's been a lot of talk around the table in regards to this particular item and a lot of chat from sporting bodies about lighting. And I was of the opinion that we weren't getting the bang for the buck and we weren't getting what we thought we were going to be getting. The information that's come out recently in regards to this very comprehensive report, and I've gone through it again and again, and I feel that we are getting exactly the same as what Perth are getting in some of the ovals down there. Bassendean Oval, we're getting exactly the same, and that's 200 lux. I think that's suitable for where we are. But it was interesting sitting here tonight and hearing another councillor say, is it upgradable? And I went, well, we're on the money here. Is it upgradable? It is upgradable, so we can move forward. So we are getting good value for money in regards to that. The great thing is as well, not just talking about football, we're also talking about golf courses, hockey fields, or not hockey fields, apology, T-ball fields, hardball fields and all the rest of it. So I endorse this item and I hope that councillors also do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Della.
Yes, thank you. I'll also be supporting this motion and have had lengthy conversations with a number of community groups that have indicated that they have had consultation with officers and the stakeholder engagement in the process and the planning for this upgrade. So I commend the officers for working through this with those stakeholders and look forward to seeing bigger, brighter events at all of our sporting ovals in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillor Viskovich, a question?
Yes, clarification, please.
Thank you.
I believe I've been told two different items that the poles that we are installing cannot have the lux upgraded, and now I believe I'm hearing that they can be upgraded. So I want to clarify.
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you. The poles can be upgraded. They can't be upgraded to 500 lux for TV.
Councillor Viskovich, follow up.
So just to follow up, we are installing 200 lux. Why would we, if we were to look at upgrading, we would potentially only look at going, I would thought, to 500. So what could we upgrade to and for what purpose?
Mr Acting CEO.
That's a really good question. For what purpose would we want to upgrade over the Australian standards for the use of those fields? And that's a question for council.
One more, Councillor Viskovich.
Thank you. So just to confirm, the 200 lux LED system that we have going in is to the same standard as the waffle in Perth.
Mr Acting CEO.
That is correct. So the latest oval that's been upgraded in Perth is Bassendean Oval, and Bassendean Oval has been upgraded to 200 lux.
Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Councillor House, question?
Yeah, just point of clarification. The sporting fields that we're referring to with the 200 lux, just to clarify, is that for activity, for a game, or is that for training?
Mr Acting CEO.
Through yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor, that is for a game, Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Councillor House, a follow-up?
Just referring to the actual audit that was prepared. The audit, as I understand, it refers to 200, and it says that 200 is the lux that Waffle will train under. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through the report and pull that out, but I was very confident that I read that because I've been listening to the conversation around the table, and that has been the key driver of the conversation has been around the ability to hit a certain level. So just if I can get some type of clarity, whether it's now or later, that the audit says 200 lux is for training facilities for Waffle.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
Thanks, Councillor House. I'll have to go back through the report, but I can assure you that 200 lux meets the Australian standards for the level of sports that are played on those fields.
And Mr Acting CEO, that's for a Waffle game, correct?
That's what it's telling me, but I will confirm it for Councillor House. But at the moment, my understanding is 200 lux is for a Waffle night game, just doesn't cover TV.
Thank you very much. One final... When we get to that point, we definitely can. Thank you. Yep. Councillor Johnson spoke, Councillor Della has spoken, so we'll call for any councillors wanting to speak against the item. Councillor speaking for the item, Councillor House.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm going to speak for the item because the officers have presented the thing that I asked them for, which was that furnished audit, and it had the lighting designs in there. So that satisfied my request, and I just kind of perplexed why we didn't have it attached in there because it was a well thought through and well put together audit. My only concern that I have is if we're trying to achieve as a council a certain level of playing field or a certain playing competition, the lights are just one aspect of that conversation. And it would be really difficult to kind of digest to know that we missed out on a big game for more than just the lights. Perhaps it's the change rooms, perhaps it's the arrangements for, I don't know, a variety of different things. They're quite prescriptive. But I also don't want to stand on the hose myself to say, well, let's not see this go through for any type of nuance. But as a conversation, and as I was touching on just then, but just last item, is talking about the strategic element of how we kind of plan to provide a premier facility that can cater for all of these, I guess, the changing landscape that we have in sport. And it's constantly changing. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have even been broaching this subject around female in male football changing rooms. So these types of changes in the environment require us to be flexible. And I think if we plan for the future and we start to look at utilising the existing facilities we have to its maximum ability, we can really achieve some great premier outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor House. Any speakers against the item? Speakers for? Speak against, Councillor Walker-Dunstan.
I don't know when we were told about the possibility to upgrade. I did some research myself and looked up the website for the management of the lighting, and the Waffle said the minimum level is 500, and that came in a couple of years ago, and the subsequent AFL guidelines have been later updated. If we wanted to have it broadcast, it would be 1,000. Bassendean have actually upgraded recently, and speaking to the Swan District Football Club, it isn't to a level as expected. They're only going to be providing games for women's and lower levels. It isn't good enough for the evening, and so they are looking to upgrade. I think we'll be missing the point if we don't look to aim for a higher level of Lux, we'd be missing out on having a premier field available for not only football, but touch and possibly even soccer, as we have other fields that they are unable to play on for premier games. I'd suggest that we should be going for a higher Lux and not just settling. Our city deserves to have a higher Lux on at least one of the ovals that we have.
Thank you, Councillor Walker-Dunstan. Councillors speaking for the item. A question, Councillor Donnell?
Yes, I know last week was question time, but if this is knocked back because of like 200 Lux, that, when would you, two things. One, when would this resurface to actually come to fruition if we were going to raise it to 500? And how much money would you envisage per oval to upgrade it to 500?
Thank you, Councillor Donnell. Before I go to the acting CEO, in terms of process-wise, if this was unsuccessfully supported tonight, then the tender isn't awarded, and unless an alternative was raised or foreshadowed during the meeting, but we are nearing the end of debate, then there is no mechanism really for the item to come out to council unless a councillor chooses to bring it through. Mr. Acting CEO.
Thank you. It would require a full redesign to bring it up to 500 Lux. Length of time, I'm unsure whether, because we get the money through grant money, whether we would then meet our grant funding. The research I've done, and I've done the same research as Councillor Walker-Dunstan, is Bassendean paid $1.3 million for their light poles, and Fremantle Oval is just looking at theirs, and theirs granted is 1,000 Lux they're going up to, and it's $3.1 million to do Fremantle Oval up to 1,000. So I would imagine the figure be somewhere between that 1.3 and $3.1 million to get an oval up to 500 Lux.
Follow-up question, Councillor Donnell.
So we've got 4 ovals here, so we'd be looking at trying to find $6 million practically, if you allow $1.5 million around, or could even be a bit more. You're saying 3 up to 3, but if you allow 1.5, that's $6 million we've got to find. So we can either, our options are, I'll lead to the question, we knock this back and don't do any of these, or we go ahead and then we can look at finding funding later down the track to upgrade, should we require. And once we got the poles up, upgrading shouldn't be that big a problem. Would be my question.
Thank you, Councillor Donald. Just figure-wise, based on the calculations from the Acting CEO, it'd be between $6 and $12 million potentially in terms of the upgrade, but Mr. Acting CEO?
That would be the best way to go forward, is the officer's recommendation is go forward with this and then look down the future of upgrades and which oval we would look at upgrading to try and upgrade with what the current infrastructure we have.
Thank you. I'll move back to debate. So we're up to 4. So any councillors wish to speak for? Councillor Donnell.
Am I allowed to speak in this with impartiality?
Yes, it's only impartial, so you're able to.
Yeah. I can understand where people say, oh, we want this, want that. We've got to remember to get it up to 500 for television. We're not going to get an AFL match here. That's been stated. They're not coming here again because we don't have the ovals. And we're not going to have a waffle game televised up here. We never have. Even during the day, they don't televise us. So my personal opinion is people are screaming out for this. And going by what Australian standard, we're told that 200 is sufficient to have a game. Now, that's where trust has to fall back in. You're assuming the Australian standard. They would have raised it if you can't play football at night under that. But with Morrison Oval, a lot of the veterans in the schools, Wallace Park is predominantly training and that. So I just think we need to go ahead with this and we can look further down the track to try and at least one oval at a time to upgrade. And we could possibly look at that as a priority. Once they're all done, we can assess and then go forward with that.
Thank you, Councillor Donald. The councillor speaking against the item. Speaking for. Speaking against. Speaking for. Before the mover has a right to reply, I will be speaking for the item. I do hold a little bit more faith that we will be able to attract some large sporting events, like a waffle game, moving forward, as we have in the past. I do highlight that there is always the daytime if we need to, if the lights weren't good enough. But it's much in line with some of the other work done by the city and a local member, where we're working through attracting big name teams like Perth Glory to hold games out here in the future. So I do think we need to be planning for the future as we work through. However, we also need to plan for our community. We're not planning for the Eagles, we're not planning for the Dockers, we're not planning for anyone else. We're planning for what does our community need in order to operate its sporting events and wider community events, because this is much bigger than just sports. This is allowing us to have more events of a night time on a range of different ovals, and it's more about activating those facilities, not just for the daylight hours, but for the nighttime hours. For me, based on the reports and the information that was supplied, and I do thank the acting CEO for providing that information through to us today to consider as well, it is important that we are looking at what does this mean for our community moving forward, both in the short to medium term, and we can look for the long-term strategy as we go through. But we need solutions now. We can't keep waiting. We can't keep sitting. It's no secret, I'm a big fan of the sports, particularly football, but how great would it be to return back to some night footy or some night activities? I know how challenging it can be for training and for events to be held on there. This feels like the right option moving forward for us to be able to address that need in the immediate to medium-term future, while we continue to work through options to continue to increase our capacity moving forward. That doesn't mean we're writing off the options. It just means we're trying to take this in bite sizes and looking at protecting our community and our community needs first before we start looking at what anyone else outside of our community requires to do what they need to do too. We will, the mover has a right to reply. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The debate is good, and this is the type of debate that we do need around the table, especially when it comes to our sport and our lights. As I said, I was one of those who was going to speak against this totally. Now not. There is part of the officer's recommendation in here that I think we can all look at, and it's to negotiate it and agree with minor variances. And I'm thinking that if there's any issues with the polls that might not take another Lux type of situation, that can be a discussion that can be had. But my understanding is that we're sweet with that once you read the report. The report itself is a little bit hard to understand when they're talking football, because 200 Lux gets mentioned twice. It gets mentioned as a training area, and it goes down a little bit more than it gets mentioned as a waffle game. It's in the report, and that's all I can go on, because I ain't no expert in that field. However, I've heard it from each side of the table, and I'll hear it again, I am sure. I feel confident that the GFL in this lighting for football have been consulted. I feel confident that the GFL have put back their views. Now, I could be horribly wrong. I'm not in that space. So I've got to get that very clear. I'm not in that space. But from what I've heard, the answer is probably they haven't been consulted enough. But that'll come out in the wash, I'm sure. So, councillors around this table, it's a step forward. It's a great step forward. And I think that leaving this in the hands of our officers to go out there now and make these minor variations, I think that would be an improvement on what we've got. And I can remember waffle coming up here and playing. And believe it or not, we had AFL, VFL games played in 1897 up here, and they didn't really have lights. And by the way, it was St Kilda that came up and played. A bit of history for you. But that was going back a long time and we didn't have lights then. We've had waffle games here during the day, and I'm sure that there's a big chance we might get one. Okay, I hope you support it.
Thank you, Councillor Donald. Councillor Johnson. I was looking at Councillor Donald. My apologies, Councillor Johnson. Councillors, we'll now put this item to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried 7-0. Mr. Acting CEO, would you be able to announce who the successful tenderer is now that this item has been accepted?
Thank you, Mr Deputy CEO. And now that it's been accepted that Kalgoorlie-Boulder Electrics, the same company that just completed the Oasis and Usher Park, are the successful tenderer on this project as well.
Thank you very much. That's just an update for community. Councillors, that was included in our attachments, but it's fantastic we can announce that out for community as well. Councillors will now move on to item 14.6.4, the pre-budget commitment to go to tender for major projects 2026 projects. There is an officer's recommendation. Councillor O'Donnell has declared a conflict of interest. Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. As it is a financial conflict of interest, Councillor O'Donnell has left the room.
Mr Deputy.
Question, Councillor House.
Can we ask the officers to clearly articulate how they've amended this report?
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr. Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll ask the Acting Director of Engineering to come up and articulate.
Thank you, Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, through the Deputy Mayor. We removed the Oasis, noting that it's going to be an agenda item coming up in the next couple of months. And due to cost implications, plus we're also looking at other funding arrangements, and removed the dam out of the item as well, noting that the tanks need to come first, the dams will probably come next financial year.
Thank you, Acting Director King. Councillors, can I call for a mover of this officer's recommendation? Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Viskovich. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak to this item? Councillor Johnson.
One of the things when this first came up, and I was going to speak to it and ask for a number of things to be removed, and surprised the ferries heard me and cast a spell, and they were removed when I got here tonight, which is fantastic. It's good to see our officers are looking at the major projects and looking at how they can structure their development. And two of the big items of 4.2 has been removed, and a 25 million plus been removed, and that was the Oasis one. A couple in here that are in place. The endowment block power, I believe, is number one. And once we get the endowment block power one put in there, we've got our EV parking at the front humming away. I think that's one good, so that's one good one. I've had confirmation that the Burt Street, Lionel Street roundabout is in need of lots of work because of water pooling and flooding, and that has been there for a while. I'm hoping when all that comes out that our little house gets put back in. Okay, the golf course tank construction. I asked a question again today in regards to that the pumps that are going in there are going to be somewhat beefed up a little bit, which is really good. So that gives us a bit more, if you like, usage. And what was the other one? So congratulations in the office for bringing this back. It makes it a bit easier budget time as well. So I hope that all councils support this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. As a seconder, Councillor Viskovich, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Viskovich.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted actually a quick point of clarification, if I may.
Question?
Yes, please. Just through to the Acting Director, if possible, or the CEO. I wanted to know the justification of doing the golf course tank construction and pump instead of the dam.
Mr. Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mr Deputy, through yourself. It's the cart before the horse, so you need to do the tanks first and the pumping infrastructure to be able to work on the dam, because you need the dam to be empty and then made larger. So you need the tank in place so you can continue to water the golf course whilst you work on the dam. So the size of the tank at the golf course would be 2.5 million litres, which would give you 2 nights water. So we'd basically be able to continue to maintain the golf course while we built the dam.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Viskovich? As the seconder, would you like to speak to this item? No? Any councillors would like to speak on this item? Councillor Howes, you've indicated you'd like to speak against.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding was pretty simple around our instructions to the administration regarding the budget and major projects. I thought we were really clear on that we were to put down the major projects until we had reevaluated the situation and determined what projects we could achieve. I'm not seeing any of the information that we're asking for in terms of the status or updates to the project information. I'm not seeing anywhere where the return on investment is articulated. I'm not seeing where there is any status on the planning. Are we at design development stage? Where are we at? So with just a lack of information, I'm concerned that we're actually approving something with insufficient information to know where the status of the project is and whether it could even be achieved within next financial year. So if those things are made clear, I'd be very, very pleased to support any project that's put forward because it has demonstrated a well thought through methodology for construction, but more importantly, it articulates what the investment will achieve. It'll either achieve a reduction in costs, it'll either achieve an increased revenue, it'll either achieve a community outcome that we desperately need right now. Now, if it does those three things, any of those things, you've got my support. But what are we supporting right now in front of us? And that's a legitimate question. What is it we're supporting? Because if it is supporting the procurement, not the purchasing, that we're being asked by the officers to budget before we know the projects, before we know the detail. The councillors, the question is, can they go out to tender for these items? Yes, you can. You can go tomorrow if you like. You don't have to have a budget. So to sign a blank cheque, that is remiss of us to not be having our due diligence. So I'd like to understand where we're finding these exciting interests that are exciting us for these projects, because I'm seeing absolutely nothing.
Thank you, Councillor House. Any councillors speaking for the item? A question, Councillor Dallin?
I would just like to ask the officer where they're at with procurement, because my understanding is that these are ready to go out to tender as early as May, and that's why this is coming to council now.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, and through yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor, all three projects have been designed and are tender ready. The Burton Lionel Street roundabout is also part of black spot funding, so has been partially funded as well. Hence the requirement of bringing this to council, because we're ready to go, because it was initially part of the 25-26 budget.
Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Question, Councillor House.
If these items are budgeted, why are they coming to us? What are we being asked to resolve here? I mean, just picking up on what was just answered, that this is all budgeted, it's identified in the budget, it's planned. What are we resolving?
So, Councillor House, my understanding, and Mr Acting CEO, please correct me if I'm incorrect here, is while the project has got a budget assigned to it and is ready to go, shovel ready, for lack of a better way to put it, we still need to commit to including the cost for that project in the 26-27 budget. That is what we're actually being asked to do here, not to negotiate on the cost of the project, not to talk about what it was required in the timelines or anything from that. It's to include the actual projects in the 2026 financial year budget and to improve the officers to start tendering for it. Mr Acting CEO, that covers it.
That's correct, yep.
Thank you.
Follow-up of that conversation, a question from the councillor. Can you give us some information around the planning, around the status? My understanding, and I go back to the replay, was we just administration just advised that we have the budget, we can go out in May. So if we can go out in May, that says to me that's before, isn't that before mid-year? I mean, before budget finalisation?
There's a tender process that will need to be followed through, which does require some time to work through it. But I will hand over to Acting CEO because it is more of an operational question.
All right, and through yourself, Mr Mayor, thanks, Councillor Hoss. So all three of these projects were initially budgeted for 25-26 and removed from budget at mid-year, although a fair bit, or a lot of work had been completed to get the design and get it ready for tender. It's now noted that by removing them from mid-year, they're no longer being able to go through for procurement unless council approve through this process today to go that. So if council didn't approve that, then we would have to wait until budget adoption in July, and we probably wouldn't be ready to have project or go project ready after any procurement process, should it be budgeted, until October or November.
Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Councillor Viskovich, a question?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Because I've seconded this motion, am I able to put forward an alternate? Or can I ask a question?
Mr Acting CEO.
Sorry, really getting you on your toes.
Would you like to ask a question first while the Acting CEO considers
Okay,
his answer to the other?
maybe my question. What if we were to change the word commit to consider on all three items?
A question, are you asking, could council do it?
Could we change the word to commit, from commit to consider into the 2026-27 financial budget on each three items?
And Councillor Viskovich, I'm assuming you're meaning that in relation to the context of potential impact that will have on the resolution itself, yeah?
Yes, correct.
Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mr Deputy, and through yourself. I don't think that would pass the procurement if we only considered it. We'd still need to commit, remembering that once the procurement started, and we still need to bring this back to council for approval, should we have any tenders in the tender process.
A question, Councillor House?
Do we have to rescind our mid-year budget resolution? Because if we've identified in the mid-year budget to drop these projects, and the council and then the officers then bring it back, the same projects, before the budget has been finalised, my question is, if the officers are particular about this, that needs to move forward, are we able to, if we've already made a decision in the mid-year budget, to not proceed?
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
No, my understanding is no, we do not have to rescind the mid-year budget. This is only to commit some funding so we can start the procurement process.
Yeah, just a nuance is...
Follow-up question, Councillor House?
So the mid-year budget, and this is why I started with, I thought we were pretty specific about our requirements in terms of the budget and the ensuring that the projects were aligned with our ability to achieve them. So I'm just struggling to understand, how did we say at mid-year budget do this, and then two meetings later we're being asked to reconsider these items for budgetary purposes without any additional information?
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, and through yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor House, at that time we went through mid-year, the officers were of the understanding that they would be able to procure this starting straight in July, or they were of the understanding they would be able to procure early, ready to start in July. But procurement rules don't allow us to do that, and budget doesn't allow us to do that. So that's why we've come back. So the intent was always to start these projects in July. So it was dropped off this year's budget to go into next year's budget, and then it was made clear that it still needed to go through the budget process. So this is coming back to council to say that to begin the budget process with these three projects, hit the ground running to procure these projects. They're shovel ready, they're ready for procurement. We'll say shovel ready, ready for procurement. So designed and ready.
Sorry, Councillor House. One final question.
Sorry. the previous item, so the previous resolution included the dam. The dam had already received funding. It had the $2 million budget allocation. So my question is, why didn't the procurement already happen if it already had a budget allocation? And I know that the answer will be, well, that's not what you're considering tonight, councillor. You're considering the 3 items. One of them is excluding the dam. But my point is still relevant. What additional information can you give us to satisfy that we have sufficient information to make a well-informed decision that if we support the procurement and that it's a $2 million project, that you go out to tender, you get prices back in July, and it comes back at $3 million?
Thank you, Councillor House. I think at that point in time, that's when council will need to make a determination if they accept the tender or not. So this process at this point in time is only approving officers to tender for each of these 3 projects, not for council to approve the finalisation of those tenders. If they were to come back, whatever they come back through, council still needs to have that consideration regardless of what the prices come in, whether or not that will be accepted. That is part of that tender process that we have in place. Mr. Acting CEO, have I missed anything else in regards to that?
No, you've missed nothing, and I do appreciate Councillor Holt's trying to find to get all the information it requires to make a good decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting CEO. Councillors, forgive me, I'm a little bit stuck on where we're up to. So we had a mover of Councillor Johnson, a second of Councillor Viskovich. I don't believe anyone else has spoken to the item yet. Is that correct, councillors? So, thank you, Councillor House has spoken again. So we're up to councillors wishing to speak for the item. Against? For? Before the mover has the right to reply, I will speak for the item. However, I do wish to acknowledge Councillor House's concerns which were raised. I do recall at the last council meeting I was one of the councillors involved in the alternative resolution that come through to consider our projects. However, also looking at that, these are critical projects for our community. In particular, point 3, the endowment block player upgrade has been something that our tenants and lessees have been screaming out for a long time now. It has, in my opinion, hindered development in that space considerably, and I think this is absolutely critical that at least we're starting the process of going to tender so that council can make that informed decision on those tenders as we get to the right time of the year with the new budget coming into consideration from there. I do remind councillors, this is the start of a process. This isn't meaning, regardless what the tenders come back through, that council is giving a blank check to say whatever it is. We will still need to consider what those projects stack up to in terms of costings as we go through this process. The mover has the right of reply. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I can see where everyone is coming from with this one here. I do bring councillors' attention to, I'll find the page 94, and in there's some indicative amounts of, 1.2, 900 or 1.5. which are ballpark figures, they've been worked out. However, they were worked out for the got to get this right, the 25-26 budget, and they got moved from that, and they're now moving into the next year. Now, these will have to go out and tender. In other words, all we're saying is let's put it out into the marketplace now, let's see what it comes back as. And when it comes back, this is where the hard decisions will be made by council. It'll be to adopt or not adopt, change strategies, or adopt something or a strategy which is going to make them work. And that's where we're at today. I'm one of these who I spoke against every single item here in 25-26 because I believe there are better ways of doing things. It's good to see, though, that this will come back. Now, if these figures come back really high, so be it. We'll have to have a good hard look at where we go with it. I can only ask councillors to support what we've got here. It is the tender process. It brings various and different things out in the process, and it makes us think when it comes back in, and we wonder why, how, and we make our call. Councillors, I'd like you to endorse this. Let's kick this can down the street. Let's see what it comes back as, because that means we are moving forward. And I like the Deputy Mayor, The main one on here that I see is endowment block lighting, power, because that's been screamed at for a number of years. Hope you can support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. We'll now move to the vote. All councillors in favour of item 14.6.4, the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. Councillors against? 2, 4, 5. It is passed 5 votes to 1. Could we please have Councillor O'Donnell back in the room? Suspended standing or Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to item 14.7.1 has already been dealt with. We'll now move on to item 14.7.2, the scheme amendment number 2 to the local planning scheme number 2, a short-term rental accommodation. One moment, Councillor Viskovich, you will have to remain near the table, however. My apologies. Question, Councillor House? Councillor House, sorry, if you can turn your microphone on.
Sorry, I can. Sorry. I'd like to move an alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor House. An alternative motion, have you pre-sent one through?
No. Sorry, no, I haven't, Mr. Deputy, and if that's the rule or
No, that's quite all right. Just checking if it was already on the screen.
Oh, okay.
If you could state your alternative, and just if you can follow on the screen as well to ensure staff are capturing it.
The resolution would be to the effect that council does not support the proposed scheme amendment on the basis that the community doesn't require this type of control at this point of time. I'm happy to have that worked through.
Thank you, Councillor House. We'll just capture that part. I think we may have to work through slightly some parts of it, but that's all right. I will hand across to the Acting CEO if there is a potential tie-up, unless the Acting CEO would like to delegate this across to another
Point of
director.
information, if I may.
Yes,
Just
Councillor
based on
Liddell.
the first wording of that there, this goes directly against the officer's recommendations. And it's well outside of the pitching field.
Sorry, Councillor House, if you turn your microphone on.
If I don't have an alternative contrary to the officer's position, we can't make an alternative decision. So it's either yes, it's no, or it's no with modifications. So I'm saying no with justification that the community doesn't require this. It isn't being driven by the community.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr. Acting CEO. So, sorry, Mr. Acting CEO, if you can turn your microphone on to answer that one.
So it should be that the council does not support the proposed scheme amendment.
Full stop.
That's it.
Yep.
Point of information.
Yes, Councillor Johnson.
There's got to be a reason for that. And the reason would be?
Which I'm sure will come out through debate and state at the end. I do believe Councillor House did state the reason as part of that, as he feels the community does require control. I'm happy to check with the Acting CEO if that's sufficient. I'm guessing we may need a little bit more in that space, but Mr. Acting CEO.
I'll get the director to come forward and give us his view on it.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. Director.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would suggest that rather than an alternative motion, it sounds like what's being proposed is just to reject the recommendation with a reasoning. So I would assume that that would be a point of debate rather than an alternate motion potentially. You might consider, but otherwise that's what that would take effect of, is to reject the report.
Thank you, Director. Councillor House, are you happy to have this continue through debate, given the nature of the Director's information? Thank you, Councillor House. Governance team, if we can remove that alternative, that has been withdrawn. With that, councillors, I'll return back to the officer's recommendation for item 14.7.2, and we'll call for a mover of this item. Councillor Johnson moving the item. A seconder for the item. Councillor Viskovich. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak to this item?
If I may ask via the CEO or acting CEO to the director, if council did not have planning like this, where are we parked?
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. You can ask that of the acting CEO, and the acting CEO can choose to delegate that across.
Thanks. I'll just get the director to come up.
And I'll just put that out there. Where are we then parked in regards to a council who needs to make decisions on these areas, especially to do with these items? Because for as long as I've been around council, these have been crosses and ticks on big boxes that we've got to have.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Director.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Touched on a little bit in agenda briefing last week is that would just require staff to effectively reinterpret. The state does require that the terminology in planning decisions uses the new endorsed terminology. So it'll just be additional work in needing to interpret how we present that information to council as to how our terminology would translate into the understanding for the applicant. But yes, we are required to use this terminology going forward, even if council technically didn't adopt it, doesn't have to adopt it, but we then need to apply it in our use of the terminology.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Johnson, as the mover of this item, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you. I do support this item. I find that it can be frustrating in the planning area, and I know that I've sat around this table and have things like this come up, and you make a hard call and you make a decision, but you make it with some basis and some ground rules, and you work your way through that. I find that definitions are a guide only, and I think if it's a state government set that we have to follow through, we've got to be conscious that our officers need to put this through as it is written. I also bring to the attention of the council that the CEO may, down the track, have a lot more power of not having any of this come to council whatsoever. And I don't think it's too far away. So if that happens, it will happen, and we'll have no say, and then we'll be talking about why aren't we having a say. I just encourage councillors to at least give our officers a footprint and somewhere where they can place their feet as they walk these items back to us, because that's the way we understand them, and that's the way that they can put them across. Be it gets to the debate, at the end of the day, that's then a decision that is made about items that are presented to council. I do support this. I think it's a great move forward, and hopefully people around the table support it.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Viskovich, I'll try to speak to this item as the seconder. Neil. Councillors, I will call for, thank you, Councillor House. Councillors, any councillors speak against? Councillor House, you've indicated. Over to yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to point out that what we're proposing to support here is a policy for short-term accommodation. This will apply to Airbnbs. This will apply to share accommodation. This will apply to one of the biggest hurdles we have to overcome in our community: housing, accommodation. I cannot support a proposal that puts increased regulation on our community and our homeowners, and I cannot support a system that only advantages the state, because we do not govern the register that the short-term accommodation providers would have to complete. The state holds that. That's in their repository, and they will use that information, presumably, for leveraging new fees. Now, that's an assumption and has nothing really relevant to this particular topic, but its relevance, I would see, is we're essentially doing the state's job. Now, if anybody has had someone in the community come up to them and say, we need to have more regulations around short-term accommodation to help improve our housing outcomes, well, please Show me how that will work, and I will support it. Show me how this particular policy benefits our community. I'll support it. I haven't seen any of that in the report, and I'm just miffed how we actually have concluded around the table. The councillors have concluded that this will be beneficial when it is not identified in the report. We have asked the councillors, we asked the administration these questions. They could not answer the questions. So I strongly encourage councillors to not support this recommendation, to support your community, and if we're going to put a regulation on top of the community who is already under the pump, we just say, no, if you want to do this, you're going to have to spend more money so we can regulate you. I can't support that, and I very much encourage councillors to not support this.
Thank you, Councillor House. I will offer, before I call for a councillor who may wish to speak for this item, I will just correct one item, Councillor House, of your debate. Questions of city officers were answered. They may not have been at the level or the information required by yourself, but I do need to highlight that questions were answered as part of that process. But obviously more information you're chasing, I can appreciate that as well. So I will call for a speaker for the item. Councillor Donnell.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I support this brought forward by the planning. If the planning section of the city thought this was of no use, no benefit, no whatever for the city, they would have put in there not to have it. They've put forward to have it. I trust the planning section and the director, and this was brought in by the state government, and we're falling into line with the rest of the state. We're not trying to make Kalgoorlie-Boulder, we're a twilight zone and we do what we want when we want. We're falling into line. And it says in their summary statement, it is recommended that council adopt the proposed scheme amendment. And I have no issue with that. And I'll still call things Airbnb. I can't get my head around STRA. However, if that's the working mechanism within the planning department, then go ahead. And hopefully down the track, where it's definitions are changing and things, I hope it doesn't come to council. I just hope it's internal and they make the decision internally to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnell. Any councillors wishing to speak against the officer's recommendation? Speaking for? Speaking against? Speaking for? Before the mover has the right to reply, I will speak for the item tonight. However, councillors, to be completely honest, moving into this meeting, I was probably more against than for. I don't like doing things simply because everyone else does. I believe in doing things that's best for our community at all costs, regardless of what that looks like for the rest of the state. However, what's persuaded me to support this item tonight is I would hate to see the matter of simply changing some definitions resulting in additional red tape or a lack of efficiency for applicants. I'd hate to see more staff time being spent potentially on working through having a multiple set of definitions and how they can be applied and how that fits in a larger scale, particularly for developers which are looking to develop in multiple communities and that. But we've got to be efficient. We've got to be making anything that we can do to encourage development and making that as efficient as possible. For me, that's what puts this over the line for me. Looking through the items itself, the state requirements already exist. There's already policies in place applied to all the areas identified, including bed and breakfast, holiday accommodation, holiday houses, motels, the works that already exist. There's already a requirement from the state, whether we change this or not. It's still there. This is about efficiency for me. Section 2 of the officer's recommendation outlines potential impacts, and they're minimal across the board. It is definitions. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're considering as we work through this. So for that reason, I've I've changed my mind based on debates, and I thank you, councillors, for your comments, both for and against. For me, at this point in time, it makes sense. The mover has the right of reply. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I bring councillors' attention to page 118, and in here it basically tells us what we're looking at, and this is why I ask councillors to support it, because one important part, this third paragraph down goes, but by initiating this plan, after advertising, the city can provide recommendations to the minister to support the amendment without modification or support the amendment with proposed modifications to address the issues raised in the submission or not support the amendment. So that gives us our opportunity to go out and feed back to the minister like we have been able to do all the way through. The minister may approve and initiate the amendment even if the city does not wish to proceed. That's basically telling us that it's going to happen. But what we want to do is we want to have our marshmallow in the fire at the same time. We want to be able to have the opportunity to at least come back and make recommendations and discuss this and make changes with the minister, not fight them. Now, I think that's fair for the officers as well because they have something to take work on. The policy implications, the proposed amendments in this response to the short stay rental came into force in June 2024. So it's been out there quite a long time. And now this is just being pushed in to get it firmed up.
Councillor Johnson, sorry, I'll just remind you, as the right of reply, new information can be introduced. You are starting to go towards that way. It's just based on debate around the table.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I'm reading straight off the hymn book. This is not new information. It's new information that every councillor has had to consider.
Appreciate that, Councillor Johnson. However, the point of a right of reply is to reply to the debate, not to the report.
Okay, so not a problem there. The debate, I think, it basically goes, well, I can leave it at that, but I just encourage councillors to have a look at that there. I ask councillors to support that. It gives us the right to support and propose modifications.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillors, I'll now put the item to the vote. All those councillors in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. Councillors against? The item has been voted for, 1 in favour, 6 votes to 1. Councillors, we now move to item 14.7.3, the development application for change of use D003/26 Holiday House, Lot 80, number 47 McDonald Street, Kalgoorlie, WA 6430. There is an officer's recommendation. Councillors, can I call for a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved by Councillor Donald, second. Seconder, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Donald, would you like to speak on this item? Thank you. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak on this item? Would any councillors like to speak on this item?
Yes.
Councillor House, for or against?
Against.
Against. Councillor House?
We're speaking about a holiday home. Guess the item we spoke about just before was a scheme amendment to short-term accommodation. So we're making a decision right now on a short-term accommodation proposal without a policy, without all the fundamentals that the councillor is so advocating for. Well, what are we supporting? I'd like the councillors to be clear about what we're supporting and how it meets the short-term accommodation policy. It'd just be remiss of us not to.
You, Councillor House, do we have any councillors wishing to speak for this item? Councillors wishing to speak against? For? Sorry, Councillor Johnson, you can't. You've unfortunately waived your right to speak on this item. So I will provide Councillor Donald with the right of reply. Would you like to take it?
Yes, just in regard to that. We're supporting this being changed from a home to a holiday home, like the old B&B. This is no different than any others that we've had in recent OCMs, nothing. And I have no issue with allowing this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnell. We will put this item to the vote. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation for 14.7.3, please raise your hand. Against? The item is passed, 6 votes to 1. Item 14.7.4 has already been dealt with, councillors, which will move us to item 14.7.5, which is a development application for a home business, D022/26, 1 Matthews Way, Somerville. There is an officer's recommendation. Councillors, can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved by Councillor Della, seconded by Councillor Viskovich. Councillor Della, would you like to speak to this item? No. Councillor Viskovich, would you like to speak to the item? No. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor Donnell, is that for or against?
For, Mr.
For.
Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Donnell.
Yes, as I said last week at the agenda briefing, with this, I actually wanted to find out if people have been contacted. You know, we just accept that things are done. So I went door knocking, and I was advised in different streets I was advised that they were advised that this was being applied for, and they had no issue whatsoever, and I couldn't see why they would have any issue, and they didn't, and so I'll be supporting this application.
Thank you, Councillor Donnell. Would any other councillors like to speak in relation to this item? Neil, the mover, has the right to reply. Not taken. I will put this item to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? The item is passed 6-1. Councillors, that moves us on to item 14.7.6, the development application, alterations to a shop and new office, D147/25, lot 926, number 32, Boulder Road, Kalgoorlie, WA 6430. There is an officer's recommendation there, councillors. Can I call for a mover for this officer's recommendation? Councillor House, moving or question? A question? Councillor House.
The officer's report is requiring that the development must take place in accordance with the operational management plan, including the traffic impact statement and parking demand study. This proposal, as I understand, is a fit-out, a refurbishment. Is that fair to say? And if that's fair to say, I'd like to know why we're asking for this level of detail for a refurbishment.
Thank you, Councillor House. Mr. Acting CEO.
I'll refer to the Director for further information.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, just because of the volume of the shortfall in parking on site, it's normal that we would request a traffic management to assure us that there is sufficient parking in the surrounding environs to be able to accommodate a recommendation to support the shortfall.
Thank you, Director. Supplementary, Councillor House.
How do the officers intend to address that shortfall? Presumably, a shortfall would result in the need to construct more car parks.
Thank you, Councillor House. Through the Acting CEO, through to the Director.
The report does already detail that there is sufficient parking already provided that satisfies the demand for the shortfall. So no additional construction of parking is required as evidenced in that assessment.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, I will call for a mover of item 14.7.6 of the officer's recommendation. Any councillors willing to move? Councillor O'Donnell as the mover and a seconder. Councillor Walker-Dunstan. Councillor O'Donnell, would you like to speak to the item? No. Councillor Walker-Dunstan, would you like to speak to the item? No. Would any councillors like to speak to this item? No. So we will go to the vote. All councillors in favour of the officer's recommendation for 14.7.6, please raise your hand. That is approved. That is adopted 7-0. Item 14.7.7, Christmas decorations procurement. There is an officer's recommendation, councillors. Can I call for a mover of the officer's recommendation? No mover of the officer's recommendation, councillors. Without a mover, the item will lapse. Moved by Councillor Della. Is there a seconder? Seconder, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Della, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you. I'll support the officer's recommendation in this. We need to move forward with something. I think last year's budget and Christmas display was probably not to standard, and moving forward, this allocation allows city officers to work forward and provide Kalgoorlie with the Christmas decorations that our community deserves. So we need to do something in this space, and that something requires a budget to go along with it. So I thank the officers for the current recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you. Yes, after last year, many comments were heard around town about the lack of decorations within the city. And whereas normally it's, how good's this? But last year was a bit of a letdown. In going forward, I'd like to review this after the season, the festive season, and just like a debrief and assess how it went, what we were given, and compare to what we could have done. Because going forward, possibly we could even, if it's not as good as we're led to believe, we could possibly look at building our own shed down at the works depot and actually storing things. We probably already have that. But there's a way of storing things. Yeah, if it's going to sit there for 11 months, it'll dust and dirt and that. But I'm sure the works depot will be able to tell us whether, look, it's just not viable. It's too expensive for us to keep doing this. But somebody's making a good quid out of this to do it. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what they can do. And I'm hoping it's innovative. I'm hoping we see something new, something vibrant. And because anybody can just put up lights. And also getting on that, hopefully the shops get into the theme of it this year and just not, it's the city's job to do the lights and thing. I'd like to see a lot more of the cities and the businesses getting involved, not just in Hannon Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. One moment, please, Councillor House. You've thrown me a bit there. No, we're on there. That's quite all right. I appreciate your passion to want to address this item. So I will call for any councillor who want to speak against. Councillor House, you've indicated. Over to yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I've given the council a solution that is innovative. It wasn't supported. I actually couldn't even table the item. I had to table it at our annual electors meeting. I had to table it at the annual electors meeting so that I could actually get my idea on the table. And the councillor's looking at me like, what are you talking about? Well, I'll tell you what I was talking about. The town hall proposal where I would uplight, we would uplight the town halls with commemorative features. And we have the talent, the services, the skills here in this community to do those things. The same with the decorations. I can't believe we're considering an item that handballs to Perth, 400 quid, 400K goes to Perth so someone can bring up decorations. I think our community is pretty good at stuff like this. I walk around, I see trees with croquet around it. That looks cool. I see other things in the community where we do it excellent. And where our first thought is, let's go to Perth and see if they... No. We're Kalgoorlie. We can do it. And guess what? We had a crack last year and we didn't do very well. So I'm not confident that we're going to get a better outcome than we did last year. And I don't think there's any dispute that it wasn't a good outcome. So my encouragement for councillors is, you want to spend 400K, let's do it here. let's back ourselves. Let's not take the easy option and handball it and hope that somebody's going to do a better job than we do. We've done this, councillors, recently, where we said, oh, we don't think we can do it, and we gave a community group a shot, and they did a great job. The New Year's Eve event. 6,000 to 7,000 people. We didn't even think we'd get 1,000. So my question to the community, do you want us to take on this job? Do you want us to potentially do what we did last year? Or do you want to put this in the hands of our community? We have some excellent groups who would take this by the horns and they would run with it. And I'd be very confident they would do a great job. So I'm not even going to move an alternate motion because it won't be supported, but I want this council to do that themselves. And you've acknowledged that it wasn't successful last time. You need to really articulate to the community why you're supporting $400,000 to do, I believe, worse.
Thank you, Councillor House. I will just clarify one item. It is a public tender, so it is open to not just Perth, it's open to everyone, but I do understand the intent of what you're looking at as well. But just clarify that for anyone viewing, but yeah. Thank you, Councillor House. Any councillors like to speak for the item? Cool. A question, Councillor Donald? No. Councillor House indicated he won't be putting forward an alternative motion at this point in time. Thank you. Any speakers for the item? Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Last year, $330,000 was allocated to the purchase and installation of Christmas decorations in the 25-26 budget. We're only increasing that by a little bit, but we are committing ourselves over 3 years. And some of the parts in here, when you drill down and you read into it, it is to have a public tender, and you are correct there, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for the design, which opens it right up to whatever people fancy, and those local people here in this community can do this. So we're not cutting them off, we're giving them the opportunity. It doesn't necessarily have to go to Perth. I think that we can do so much with what we have here in Kalgoorlie and in Boulder, where if we ask those who are local or those who have the expertise outside to come up with something and it meets the muster, our community will be involved. Now, if they come from local people, I will be absolutely applauding. If they're there out there now and this particular council meeting is streamed out there, I welcome them, if this gets passed, to ring up and get involved, because that's the only way we're going to get it done. Last year we got hit with poles that bent, which they weren't fit for purpose. But what we can now do is to put cameras up there, or light ray machines, whatever they are up there, similar to what Councillor House has said for the town hall. But let's make it all the way up Hannon Street and Burt Street. Let's put it out at the museum. No, out at the airport. And just as a finish off, for this to be supported, it would be fantastic. We're starting this thing now at the GAC, where one wall is going to be a wall of audio-visual. And I think that that's the stepping stone to having what we could have here in 3 years' time. Fantastic. I think new technology and new ideas is what we need to go. And I think it needs to come local. But what I'm not going to do is just let it go away and not support this officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any councillors wishing to speak against the item? Councillors wishing to speak for the item? Against? For? Councillors, before the mover has the right to reply, I will be speaking for the item. Councillors, it's important to remember ultimately what is being proposed here tonight through the officer's recommendation needs to come back to council. For me, I see this very much as this is an opportunity for absolutely anybody to come up and provide some exciting and some really innovative ideas for council to consider as a tender process moving forward, and to offer that assurances that this program is a 3-year agreement potentially. You can really plan, you can build, you can really, really maximise your expenses. You can front load it, you can do whatever you need to do. It gives a lot of assurances from there. What really excites me about this is it empowers our community and community as a whole to deliver community-based outcomes. Council should not and isn't the be or end all when it comes to delivering outcomes for our community. I'm a very big believer that the more we can push to our community and empower our community to take leadership and ownership on, and we provide that support mechanism, the better we are as a community as a whole. So this is a great opportunity for us to be able to do that. Ultimately, we have the final say when it comes back, and we still got to pick whatever that proposal is, and there's plenty of mechanisms if councillors want to at that point in time to potentially maybe put it out to community with a bit of a poll and see what wins, or whatever we want to do at that point in time. This starts the process. Without this process, the risk is that we either continue to do what we have previously, try to do it a bit better, but we're relying on the same ideas from the same source of information. This will allow us to go out to market, to see what else is out there, what else we can do, what are some of those other ideas, and really look at where we're going to go from there. So I'm actually really excited about this. Obviously having a young family and being a big kid myself at heart, I love Christmas decorations, I love Christmas, I love all the major holidays. I'd love to see potentially innovation, as Councillor House and Councillor Johnson has identified, not just around Christmas decorations, but what else can we use these decorations for during the year? Really capitalise on the opportunity and celebrate our community as every opportunity that we can. And again, it comes back to improving that livability for our community and improving the opportunities that for people to want to stay, want to keep their families here, want to keep their kids growing through, and it's a great experience and memory to be able to share with your families from there. The mover has the right to reply. Councillor Della, over to yourself.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and I'll ask all my fellow councillors around the table to again support this. I'd love to thank the Deputy Mayor for supporting this and his enthusiasm that he's shown. I too am a big kid at heart and love to see our city lit up at all the opportune times during the year. And I'd also like to, I suppose, capitalise on the comments that Councillor House made that we've already put out our New Year's celebration last year, and the commentary around that is that it was a huge success. So I too am excited about seeing what community organisation or small business could come and provide great outcomes for our future through the tender process. So I'd ask all councillors to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Della. Councillors, we'll now put this item to the vote. All those councillors in support of this item, please raise your hand. Sorry, Councillor Donald? No, that's support. Thank you. All those councillors against. The item is carried 6 votes to 1. We now move on to item 15, questions of which due notice has been given. Councillors, there is nil. Item 16 is confidential items. Again, councillors, there is nil. Item 17 is the date of the next meeting, and the next ordinary council meeting will be held on the 18th of May, 2026. And with that, councillors, I will officially close the meeting at 9:33 and thank a community which have stayed for us for quite a long meeting tonight for tuning in. And again, encourage the community to reach out to councillors if there are any concerns or any ideas or anything you want to raise. We would love to hear them. Thank you very much.